world of deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. It's the David Knight Show.
As the clock strikes 13, it's the 14th of October, year of our Lord 2025. Well, today we're going to take another look at the Trump insurrection. Of course, in California, we have some new gun control legislation. What a surprise. And yet, it's going to be interesting to see how the Supreme Court handles this. Because one of the things that they have said is that commonly used firearms are protected. Well, they're going after the number one firearm, and that's the Glock. Of course, that phrase is not in the Second Amendment, is it? And that was added, interestingly enough, by Antonin Scalia, the so-called originalist. So we're going to see how this works out, but there's also some very fascinating news about Qatar that we didn't get to yesterday as well, and how that interfaces with the Trump family and the pushback by many people within MAGA. So now they've got yet another issue that they're at odds with at Trump. Not the vaccine, not the pandemic, but one by one, they're starting to see who this guy is. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Well, in Portland, they've had a protest, which you wouldn't have a protest like this, I guess, except in Portland or maybe Austin. We have nude cyclists joining the anti-ICE protests as it's raining in Portland. And I guess they're protesting naked tyranny. Did you think that's a... I guess if your goal is to be as obnoxious as possible, I guess that works better than the crazy costumes that they're wearing. No costume at all is probably the... Anyway, the trading insults with counter-protesters who showed up to sing the Star-Spangled Banner and carried a large banner of Charlie Kirk. There we go. It's our patron saint of the right now. The protests have only intensified in recent days as the Trump administration doubles down on its portrayal of Portland as an urban dystopia controlled by far-left radicals, a narrative denied by many locals and state and city officials. Well, I think that we would all agree that that's an accurate characterization. I would say that it is a radical left dystopia. I've been there. And yet, the means does not justify the end. And you're not going to end that with military force or with police from the federal government. The problem with Portland is it's a spiritual one, it's a mental one, and you can't fix that. This is the way these people want to live. You just need to let them go their own way, but you don't want to destroy the Constitution, trying to fix it. This is like nation building, as we've said before. You can't put something there that's not there. So the counter-protesters, some of whom wore Trump-branded garb, numbered in the dozens, they were flanked by American flags and an image of Charlie Kirk standing in front of a white cross with one arm raised in a fist. Is that what that's? I don't think that was really... It was about the fight thing. That was not his thing. It was like, prove me wrong. Let's have a discussion. They don't get it. They have reinvented Charlie Kirk in their own image, haven't they? Across the street, a phalanx of protesters opposed to administration's immigration policies danced and jeered despite a Pacific Northwest downpour. The two sides yelled obscenities at each other through microphones. This is how beneficial these protests are. You know, you can go show up, and it reminds me of the Monty Python skit where the guy pays to have an argument, and he spends the whole time arguing about whether or not he's paid enough to have an argument. Federal agents stood watch from the roof of the federal building, where they occasionally shot pepper balls into the peaceful crowd throughout the afternoon into the evening. And see, this is the other thing, too. I totally disagree with these people in Portland about everything. And yet, they have a constitutionally protected right to air their grievances, if not everything else. And so the reality is that if you're going to allow the federal government to overrule that and say, well, we don't care that they have a constitutional right to redress their grievances. We're going to kick it off with force. We're going to shoot these people with pepper balls. And the rest of the stuff, we saw that on January 6th, and a lot of people thought that was reprehensible. How do we go over such a short period of time, and these people have completely had their memories wiped, if they ever could remember anything? I've never seen anybody with such short-term memories and no ability to see trends either as the MAGA people. It's just amazing. All the stuff that was done to them, they're now cheering to make this a precedent that will be used by the next Hillary, by the next Obama, by the next Biden. Can't you people see this? It's just amazing to me. They shot protesters with pepper balls. I really dislike these protesters, but I really, really dislike the shooters who are doing this. That's enough to make me want to protest, but not in the way that they are. To be naked is to be as vulnerable as you can be, said one person. And that's what we're saying. We're not afraid. So that's how these people think.
What really gets me is that it says, to be naked is to be as vulnerable as you can be, said Elise, a Portland resident who asked that her last name not be used due to privacy concerns. And it's just
no sense of irony here. Yeah,
you'd think the irony would have killed her right on the spot.
That's good, Travis. Yeah, I missed that. ICE protesters. Your mic's not on, Lance. Yeah. Go ahead. What'd you have to say?
Saying the wisest man at the nudist speech hides not his body but his face.
Yeah. Anti-ICE protesters have called for the immigration facility to be shut down. An idea that the city appears to be considering. Last month, city officials warned the building's owner that ICE might be violating its conditional use permit by holding detainees longer than it was agreed. The U.S. General Services Administration has operated the facility since 2011 as a processing center where immigration officials can check in with asylum seekers and immigrants. According to the permit, the federal government cannot hold detainees there for more than 12 hours. Mayor Keith Wilson said the agreement has been repeatedly broken between October 1st, 2024, last year, when Biden was there, and July 27th. So they said, ICE made clear these detention limitation commitments to our community, and we believe they broke those policies more than 24 times. I'm proud of our team for conducting a thorough, thoughtful investigation. So that's going to be the technicality in which they want to try to move to close this ICE facility. And again, my orientation is I'm all about local control. I'm all about division of power. I'm all about state and local control versus centralizing everything under the federal government, number one. Number two, the Constitution. We have to have a standard. We have to have an objective standard. And the government, especially the federal government, especially the president, needs to be held to that standard, needs to be subjected to that standard. Trump, as we're looking at his idea of what law is, it's a weapon to be wielded by him against his personal enemies. He again has urged Pam Bondi to take action. And this I talked about briefly yesterday. I thought it was worth going back to look at it again because WND, it used to be WorldNet Daily, talks about this and is absolutely completely skips over the complaint that Trump has. He says it was Biden's FBI and we got to do something. January the 6th, 2021, Trump is still president for another couple of weeks. And he, as well as Trump media like WND, pretend that he wasn't president. They pretend that it was Biden who was president. And when you look at the Biden FBI agents, who they accuse, I think rightfully so, of being agent provocateurs and then of abusing the law, why are they abusing their legal authority right now? And why are they acting as agent provocateurs? And they are. If they sit on a building and they start shooting pepper balls at people who are peaceful, like that guy who was a priest, and he wasn't a priest, he was a pastor. He's a Presbyterian pastor. Incredibly liberal, and he's basically killed the church that he took over there with his abortion and LGBT support. But he was not doing in terms of the political aspects there. He was not doing anything. He was not even yelling insults at the people. And they shot him in the face with a pepper ball. And I just have a real problem with the people on the right who cheer that, because it's going to happen to them. And they like to say FAFO. Well, the same thing applies to you when you support the government doing whatever it wishes without the restraint of the law. You're going to FAFO yourself. So Trump called out Pam Bondi because she's not acting to do something about these 274 FBI agents that were with the Capitol crowd on January the 6th. And W&D won't point out that Biden was not president, that Trump was president at that point in time. They go along with the farce. He says, all uppercase, the Biden FBI placed 274 agents into the crowd on January the 6th. And again, as he was pushing people to this, as he was fleecing them of their money and pushing them to this pointless protest, and that's the whole thing, it was pointless. That's why I said on December the 14th, I said it's pointless at this point because they have failed to get a hearing. They failed to make their case to the state legislatures. There were 4 state legislatures that were controlled by Republicans where there was a razor-thin margin. They could have made the case if they thought there was fraud. They could have gotten a second set of electors officially sent by that state rather than just one set of electors from each state. So I said, there's really no point in it. And there's no point in Alex Jones' Stop the Steal except to make money. So I got fired. But I truly believe that, and I would do it again. Chris Wray lied to the American public, said Jim Hoff, the Gateway pundit. He set up the good American patriots who attended January the 6th protest. Well, you might want to take a look, Jim, at Trump himself. He's the one who set people up. He more than anybody. And Alex Jones, the Stop the Steal, the two of them sent people there. You can get angry at the FBI and you can get angry at what Biden did after the fact and how he abused his authority. And you can get angry at Ray Epps and all the rest of the stuff. But the people who sent them there were Alex Jones and Donald Trump. And they made millions off of people. In the case of Trump, hundreds of millions off of the supporters that they put in jeopardy. And then Trump left them twisting in the wind while he pardoned the white-collar criminals that were friends of Jared Kushner, some of the biggest white-collar criminals ever. So he previously called out Pam Bondi as, quote, all talk and no action, unquote, over the progress on investigations into FBI Director James Comey, Adam Schiff, and Letitia James. So now she has moved to enforce his personal vendettas. But just notice that this is really for your consumption. If you're president, do you really communicate with your attorney general via social media posts? Seriously, well, I didn't see, I didn't check my feed yesterday or something, right? No, you're going to talk to them, right, in person. So this is for you. This is not for her. Pam, I have reviewed over 30 statements and posts saying essentially the same old story as last time. All talk, no action. Nothing is being done. What about Comey, Adam, Shifty Schiff, and Letitia? They're all guilty. You need to get them locked up. And so that's what he's doing with this as well. Well, meanwhile, Bondi says that federal deployment to Memphis, where they're not being fought by the Democrat governor that's there, or mayor that's there, they have racked up over 500 arrests, and they're very proud of the fact that they have seized 144 illegal guns. Let me ask you, under the Second Amendment, Travis, what guns are illegal under the Second Amendment?
I've yet to find one.
Yeah, none. There's no such thing. If you pay attention to the Constitution, our Attorney General Pam Bondi, there is no such thing as an illegal gun. But of course, Trump touts this as a victory because Trump himself is nothing but a New York City Democrat. He has pushed gun control. He has established new precedents for gun control. Gun control done by the president with executive orders, by the bureaucracy underneath him, not even by the Congress violating the Constitution, but by the president and his bureaucracy. And so yet again, he's a for gun
guns,
control.
Just illegal politicians.
That's right. That's good. That's good. We should make a T-shirt of that. That's really good. Bondi said, "We've been making arrests left and right, and we've seized 144 illegal guns just in the short time that we've been in Memphis. It doesn't take long to violate the Constitution. It's a new issue," said Trump, "and it's called crime. We stop crime, and they allow crime. They want crime." Yeah, it is a new issue for the federal government to address crime because it's not in the Constitution for them to do that whatsoever. We've been saying this for the longest time. All the FBI agents that you're so upset about that got involved in all these things against people, these plots and conspiracies and setting people up, covering up for the government as well as occasionally doing an investigation. That's there because part of it is because it began as a violation of the Constitution, and it remains a violation of the Constitution. And they've used this in the most insidious ways. But what do you expect when you start with by ignoring the law? What do you think the FBI is going to do after that? And so it is a new issue because we never did want the federalization of the police. And this is what Trump is doing. And I'm absolutely amazed at just how little is being said by conservatives about this. I mean, even the John Birch Society, they waited a while before they said anything about it, and then they did an excellent article on it. And since then, I haven't seen anything else about it. They've moved on to other issues. They were the ones who 60 years ago were saying, support your local sheriff, let's not federalize law enforcement. This is the essence of what they were always fighting, and yet they don't care. They're just going to look the other direction. So that brings us to the gun issue in California. A Second Amendment showdown. California bans Glock handguns in a major challenge to the Second Amendment. This is new scum, new scam, nuisance, whatever you want to call him, Gavin, signed the long-anticipated Responsible Gun Manufacturing Act, a law that may now trigger a major challenge under the Second Amendment. The law banned the Glock semi-automatic handguns that are a favorite of American gun owners, including, supposedly, Lala Harris. And so when she had to build up her creds, she claimed that she had a Glock. Of course, many of us did not believe that. Just like when she was Attorney General of California, she was locking up marijuana users left and right. And then she claimed, yeah, when I was in college, I was doing blah, 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 and smoking joints and listening to a group that didn't exist when she was in college. So
I think it was Public Enemy or maybe NWA.
I don't know, yeah. Anyway.
Well, maybe she meant her bodyguard carries a Glock.
That's right. These people have bodyguards. They don't need guns. One of the most ambitious gun bans since the Supreme Court ruled in the District of Columbia versus Heller that gun ownership is an individual right. So this may actually backfire against California because certainly the Heller decision backfired against Washington, D.C. In that Heller case, if you recall, they had an off-duty cop, was Heller. And they came after him. Actually, he was fighting them because he wanted to be able to carry his weapon when he was off duty. They said he couldn't do it. And so he took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court recognized the fact that what everybody knows, and that is that the Bill of Rights is about individual rights. It's not about collective rights. You know, the 9th and 10th Amendment talk about the division of power and are there to keep the federal government from consolidating power. I mean, Madison looked at the Constitution and said, well, I think they're going to do things like, use the Commerce Clause or the General Welfare Clause to give themselves a blank check to do anything they want. And we don't want that. So the 9th and 10th Amendment are there to restrain the federal government and to demark lines of authority and power. But the other 8 are all about individual rights. They're all about individual rights. And so it was an absurd position that had been taken by the Supreme Court for the longest time, saying that the Second Amendment wasn't about individual rights. As a matter of fact, I remember having, Andy, I won't mention his last name, but Andy at the video stores. We had a kid who, we met him because he was running from the police because he was skateboarding at the shopping center. I said, come in here, we'll hide you, So anyway, we became friends, and he was a good kid. He was number 2 in his class. He was a salutatorian in his class. But he would argue with me about the Second Amendment and say, no, that was written for the National Guard. I said, you realize the National Guard didn't exist then? The National Guard is not the militia and all the rest of the stuff. But that's how they went down this path, and that's the legal fiction that they created to say that the Second Amendment was not an individual right. But it is patently obvious to everyone. And finally, the Supreme Court admitted the obvious because of the Heller decision. Antonin Scalia stressed that the Second Amendment protects all types of firearms, quote, in common use at the time, unquote, for lawful purposes such as self-defense. Well, the phrase in common use at the time, which they have so focused on, is not in the text. He made this up. He threw that in. And so now this has become the point of contention. Well, was this in common use at the time? And yet, if you look at this, they want to go after the most commonly used guns that are out there, not just the AR-15, but now the Glock, which is this article from Zero Hedge points out. The Glock is, the AR-15 is estimated 1 in 20 Americans own an AR-15, but the Glock is even more popular. In 2021 alone, they produced 581,000 handguns, actually 582,000 if you round up. And in 2022, 465,000. So they're doing about 500,000 a year. It is also the weapon of choice for an estimated over 65% of law enforcement agencies. Lala Harris then bragged that she had a Glock, her cherished companion. It became apparent that she was losing men generally in the campaign, made a ham-handed effort to reinvent Harris. In a softball interview with Oprah, she declared that she is a gun owner and said, if somebody breaks into my house, they're getting shot. When liberals like CBS's Bill Whitaker expressed shock at her new gun-toting persona on the campaign trail, he asked if she actually fired it. She did her best Rooster Cogburn, and she said, well, a gun that ain't loaded ain't no good for nothing. Since since she's shooting blanks too, she ain't no good for nothing either, is she?
That also still doesn't answer. That's a non sequitur. That doesn't answer the question.
No, that's right. And the reality is that when she was Attorney General in California, she filed an amicus brief to say that the District of Columbia could prohibit an off-duty cop from carrying a gun for his own protection. So she was in support of the handgun ban in D.C. that was overturned by the Supreme Court in Heller.
It's truly amazing how dumb Kamala Harris is. I think she may be the dumbest candidate we have yet seen.
I saw a clip. I didn't put it in the deck, but I thought it was funny. She was somewhere, and she was kind of walking around and making statements, and somebody said, she is falling down drunk. And boy, it certainly did seem like it. So I don't know how much of it is stupidity and how much of it is the fact that she seems to be constantly drunk.
Column A, column B. You know, maybe they're both feeding off each other.
That's
I love
right.
how with all these major politicians, we have to wonder, so is he senile? Is she an alcoholic? What's going on with these people?
Are they stupid or are they evil and controlled by the globalists? Yeah, that's exactly right.
Answer, all of the above.
That's right. Gun control advocates have been chipping away at the concept of in common use at the time by arguing that a variety of popular weapons like the AR-15 cannot be considered in common use at the time of the ratification of the Second Amendment. So yeah, those guns didn't exist there. So they're not allowed for you to have a modern gun. So they're got to go back to muzzle loaders. And Scalia, however, joined Justice Clarence Thomas in 2015 in a dissent. Thomas had written, quote, several courts of appeal have upheld categorical bans on firearms that millions of Americans commonly own for lawful purposes, and such rulings are non-compliance with our Second Amendment precedents. And that's the problem. You know, even people like Clarence Thomas, who I think is the best one on the Supreme Court, they just don't take the Constitution as written. And they believe that they're setting precedents that have the effect of law. I think that's a very dangerous idea, because we've had the liberals have for the longest time treated the Constitution as a living document, quote unquote. And by that, they mean that they can change it constantly without truly amending it according to what the Constitution says. There is a process for amending the Constitution. They ignore that and decide to do it their own way. So that's all just a misdirection.
You reminded me of a very famous copy pasta that floats around the internet. It's making fun of the founding fathers only intended you to use the weapons of their time. And I pulled it up. It says, I want a musket for home defense, since that's what the founding fathers intended. 4 ruffians break into my house. What the devil? As I grab my powdered wig and Kentucky rifle. Blow a golf ball-sized hole through the first man. He's dead on the spot. Draw my pistol on the second man. Miss him entirely because it's smoothbore. It nails the neighbor's dog. I have to resort to the cannon mounted at the top of the stairs loaded with grape shot. Tally-ho, lads. The grape shot shreds 2 men in the blast, and the sound and extra shrapnel set off car alarms. Fix bayonet in charge of the last terrified rapscallion. He bleeds out waiting on the police to arrive, since triangular bayonet wounds are impossible to stitch up. Just as the founding fathers intended.
That's right. And that's the way you handle a SWAT team, right? You have your cannon with a grape shot. Well, there's another aspect to this. The Democrats have been pushing really hard against Glock switches, which are already illegal. They can be attached to the rear of a Glock slide to make the pistol shoot fully automatic. Such switches are already unlawful. They're now going after the gun itself, confirming that the objective of these early moves were to ban the semi-automatic weapons themselves. As a matter of fact, the text of the bill says, a machine gun convertible pistol, as any semi-automatic with a cruciform trigger bar that can readily be converted by hand or with common household tools into a machine gun by the installation or attachment of a pistol converter as specified. And pistol converter as any device or instrument that when installed in or attached to the rear of the slide of a semi-automatic pistol replaces the back plate and interferes with the trigger mechanism, thereby enables the pistol to shoot automatically more than one shot by a single function of the trigger. Well, the reality is that if you completely redesign any gun, you can do all kinds of things to it. But the gun as it is not fully automatic. And this has always been a confusing point for liberals. They don't understand the difference between semi-automatic and automatic.
It's a fully semi-automatic rifle.
I don't think it's ever really been clear in their minds what the difference is. Semi-automatic meaning, of course, that you have to pull the trigger each time. The legislation makes repeated reference to any weapon that can be equipped with a pistol converter. Thus, the Glock switches are unlawful. Criminals still use them. Thus, the gun itself falls under the category as a machine gun convertible weapon. The Supreme Court has fueled these laws by repeatedly turning down reviews of bans. States like Illinois outlawed some of the most commonly used rifles and magazines in America. And so they said, perhaps now the Supreme Court will hear it. Kavanaugh has said the court is likely to grant cert in the next term or two to some gun issues. This would be the one to start on. Absolutely. Well, before we take a break, we've got a couple of comments here.
Yes, we do. KWD68 says, I pointed out the cutter base we are allowing to be built here to a MAGA. They said, trust the plan. That's right. Trust it.
Yeah.
Trust our dear leader.
It's amazing when you look at all of the different aspects of Cutter and the Trump family and what Trump has said in the past about Cutter. Truly is amazing. But they were his go-to people to make this deal work, evidently. They were harboring Hamas. And I said from the very beginning, I said, if you want to get the leadership of Hamas, they're not in Gaza. They're in Qatar. And eventually the Israelis did go there and get them. But for 2 years, they killed civilians wantonly.
Atomic Dog says, I saw a video of the naked protesters. It's been a rough year for videos. I think the goal was to have ICE be stricken blind by their corpulent naked bodies. That's right. You can't arrest what you can't see. KWD68, that woman is all about her privacy. Citizen of Americaca. So because some ghetto rat put a full auto switch on his Glock, now that pistol is illegal? I don't think so. You know how many law enforcement officers carry Glock 40 caliber? Not as many law enforcement officers carry 40 anymore. With the improvements in ballistics technology, 9mm has basically bridged the gap into what 40 used to be. And as such, since it's a much more common caliber, they've switched back to 9mm from what I've read and seen. But
well, I'll defer to your expertise on this.
40 used to be a lot more popular because it was a good, it had a little bit of extra power on 9mm and more stopping power. But now 9mm's just as good. From what I've heard, I'm not an expert, but I do like to do a little bit of research here and there. Yeah. Put the switch on the Glock. Real Octo spook. If these state governors and mayors were not criminals, this would not have to be done. My AR-15s go full auto with a simple trigger drop-in module done in a minute or two. This all has nothing to do with anything other than criminals and government wanting the Second Amendment removed. Yep.
Yeah, the problem I have is that the presidency has gone full automatic. That's whatever he wishes.
Get down, he's got the pen!
And so is the government. I mean, they just completely ignore the Constitution they swore to uphold as a condition of their authority. So they're still in office. They still have power to use against us. But they have no legitimate authority. That's the key when you look at this, because as a Christian, we are to obey legitimate authority. That's not our government.
Denver Attaway says Glocktoberfest. Yeah, that's right. Zoxavoxos here is what is needed in the Constitution. Any weapon availed by a government against its people shall be availed of its people.
Yeah.
Yeah. You would think that shall not be infringed would be simple enough. It takes a real genius to twist it into something it isn't. This is why I have the Supreme Court does not sit in judgment of the Constitution.
That's right. They're not above the Constitution.
They're not above the Constitution.
They have to take an oath to it as well.
They've somehow taken on this role of, oh, we're the arbiters, and if we say something is unconstitutional, we'll get around to twisting our words into something else. And
well, whenever they say they're going to interpret the Constitution, it's like it's not written in another language. That's one of the reasons why we don't want to have two different languages as official languages, right? Because you don't want because our American government has already done that in Panama. They came up with a memorandum of understanding, and the Spanish version for the people in Panama is completely different than the one that they filed as in English. You don't want to be able to play that kind of game. But unfortunately, that's kind of what the Supreme Court says. We have the English version of the Constitution that you and I can read, and then we have the version that's in the head of the Supreme Court, which we can't read. We try to read the tea leaves on that, but we can't.
Impossible to parse. Bronx Stomper 111. Who would have ever thought that shall not be infringed would be hard to understand? That's what I'm saying. It takes a real genius to twist it into something.
Yeah, and that means around the edges, right? Mm-hmm. Gradually moving the boundary, infringing on somebody's property rights. That's really the picture that you have there.
And again, that's why you don't just blindly trust the Supreme Court. Their interpretation, trust your own eyes. If you think you have a different interpretation of the Constitution than the Supreme Court does, chances are you're right and they're wrong. Mm-hmm. They just have the power to do what they want.
That's right.
KWD68, Biden was in office for COVID lockdowns too. That's right. It was all that nasty Biden. He did it all. Officer, take him away. Trump Burger, the gun companies will never stop selling to the cops, just the public.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I think when you look at it, again, Biden and Trump, both little puppets of the globalist, and they were there simply for PR purposes, the left-right march of tyranny. And you had Ben Garrison absolutely got that right. Well, we're going to take a quick break, folks, and we'll be right back. Stay with us.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
If you like the Eagles,
on a dark desert
cars. And Huey Lewis in the news.
They say the hotter rock and roll is forbidden.
You'll love the Classic Hits channel at APS Radio. Download our app or listen now at apsradio.com.
All right, welcome back. Let's take a look at some of the things that Trump has said about Qatar. And, of course, in the past, in 2017, Trump made it very clear what he thought about Qatar. And let's see, I've got it here in the decks. There we go. Oh, wait, that's his golf course.
The nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. And in the wake of that conference, nations came together and spoke to me about confronting Qatar over its behavior. So we had a decision to make. Do we take the easy road, or do we finally take a hard but necessary action? We have to stop the funding of terrorism. I decided, along with Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, our great generals and military people, the time had come to call on Qatar to end its funding. They have to end that funding.
Except what they were doing was harboring the people of Hamas, which evidently he was against. But, of course, all of that was before they made the deal for the golf course and Trump. A new Trump golf course, $5.5 billion beachside project announced for Qatar. They have also given them access to U.S. military jets, and a part of that is a base in the United States, and that has been a bridge too far for several on the right. Laura Loomer, who had no problem with Trump doing lockdowns, mass murder injections, and assassinations of foreign leaders, bombing countries without any declaration of war, doing gun control by executive order, all of that. She had no problem with it. But you put a military base of some Arabs in the United States, and she has a big problem with it. I don't like
Laura
it.
Loomer's worked very, very hard to call herself Jewish, and if the Muslims take over, she's going to have problems.
Yeah, she's not Jewish. She's as Jewish as that guy, what's the guy in New York?
Santos. George Santos.
She's as Jewish as George Santos. She's Jewish. She's aspirationally Jewish, like Beto O'Rourke was aspirationally Hispanic. Play the card there. But anyway, the reality is that bases like that have been done for other countries so they can train on these very complicated weapon systems. But it begs the question, it's not so much the base as it begs the question, why are we giving this terrorist, this country that harbors terrorists like Hamas, why are we giving them access to state-of-the-art jets? That's the bigger issue. Well, I think the issue is that you've got a golf course that's there. You also have Qatar that intervened for Trump to make this deal go through. And that was a key thing for him. He wanted to look good, so he's willing to give jets to terrorists in order to look like a peace president. So I get the Peace Prize because I gave state-of-the-art jets to a terrorist nation. There you go.
This is another one of those things where I'm sure some people will be, but you were talking, you're not for Israel in Gaza, and now you're complaining about Hamas. Yeah, there aren't any good actors in this scenario. They both have their problems.
That's
it's
right.
Simply that Israel has orders of magnitude more firepower, and they are able to, at will, just demolish Gaza if they wish. They have been doing so.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Well, Mr. Peace Prize himself is now talking about Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine, and they're going to throw some Tomahawks at them, do the Tomahawk chop. Trump is considering sending long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles to Ukraine. Asked by reporters on Air Force One whether he would provide Kiev with Tomahawks, he said, well, we'll see. I may. Again, it's just what mood he's in on a given day, just like the tacos, the Trump tacos. So now we're going to do the Tomahawks and always chicken out type of thing, as opposed to tariffs. He's going to have that same kind of on-again, off-again issue with the Tomahawks. And why should that be a unilateral, autocratic decision by the president? Shouldn't Congress have something to say about that? Well, of course, Congress, as long as the Republicans have a majority, is not going to do anything other than what Trump says, because that's what Squeaker Mouse Johnson does. He does whatever Trump tells him to do. So they're not going to push back on Trump at all. So it will be his unilateral decision as to whether or not he wants to get closer to provoking World War III. We'll see. He says it would be a new step of aggression. And he said, Zelensky said he'll meet with Trump in Washington on Friday for talks that will include the Tomahawks. Trump's attitude to Russia has hardened in recent months as he's become impatient with Putin's lack of cooperation in reaching a ceasefire deal with Kiev. I might tell them, that is Russia, that if the war is not settled, that we may very well send Tomahawks to Kiev. We may not, but we may do it. See? Trump always chickens out, one way or the other. This is why I say his way of negotiating is just incoherent, and it's the kind of thing that gets us into really big wars. When people don't know what's going on in terms of war, that is the same kind of chaos and uncertainty that he's inflicting on economic markets and on our small and medium-sized businesses. When he starts doing that with something as important as war, that could easily set off World War III. He's an idiot and a tyrant. In September, Peskov has dismissed the threat of Tomahawks, saying they wouldn't be able to change the dynamic of the war. And remember, when we talked about that, the issue is we don't have that many, and they've only got a limited amount that they can do each year. And they could quickly exhaust, they could be very damaging to start with, but they would quickly exhaust their supply. It wouldn't be a sufficient quantity of them to really make a difference. However, in his comments on Sunday, Peskov noted that if the Tomahawks were launched at Russia, Moscow would not be able to tell whether they were carrying nuclear warheads. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev then doubled down on this, on these comments. He said, how should Russia respond exactly? He said, the delivery of these missiles could end very badly for everyone, and first of all, for Trump himself. Medvedev and Trump have sparred online before. It was comments by Medvedev in August that led Trump to say that he had ordered 2 nuclear submarines to move closer to Russia. This is what I mean. This is the kind of, schoolyard bullying tactics that are idiotic. Yeah, you made some comments on Twitter. Well, I'm going to move some nuclear carriers close to Russia. Where does this start? And when does it stop? Since the start of Russia's invasion in 2022, Zelensky has made multiple requests for long-range missiles as it weighs striking Russian cities from the front lines of the grinding conflict. Ukrainian cities, including Kiev, have repeatedly come under heavy Russian bombardment with drones and missiles. Russia has particularly targeted Ukraine's energy infrastructure as winter approaches, causing widespread power cuts. Last month, Trump's special envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, suggested the president had authorized strikes deep into Russian territory, telling Fox News there's no such thing as sanctuaries from attacks in the Russian-Ukraine war. Well, does that also apply to the USA? We think that we're not going to be touched by any of this stuff. And, of course, they don't have to fire a nuclear missile at the United States to inflict a great deal of harm. Our very, very fragile infrastructure is an open target for anyone who wants to mess with the U.S., and that includes Russia, China, even the drug cartels that Trump wants to pick a fight with, the Venezuelans. It's a very, very vulnerable system. We have a porous border. Anybody could do this as a terrorist act. And so he's pushing us into very dangerous territory. As a matter of fact, that's another reason to pay attention to Jack Lawson's book, The Civil Defense Manual, at jacklawsonbooks.com. Because, again, everything that's being done is making our fragile infrastructure even worse. Whether you're talking about the climate MacGuffin, where they're shutting down reliable, affordable power, or we're talking about AI, where they're going to have such large demands that the burden of building out the infrastructure is going to fall on you and I. But of course, the number one priority for power will be them. And then at the same time, we add this other leg of this, which is that we're picking fights with all these different people when we have such a vulnerable infrastructure, so easily to take it down. So again, there's a storm coming. It was QAnon that used to like to say that, but actually the guy who's starting the storm is their own guy. So yeah, the storm is coming.
What was that thing? They were like WWG1 something. I don't know.
Oh, where we go one, we go all, or something.
I have no idea what it ever meant. I just see them spamming this in all the chats. Just,
that's right.
Storm is coming. That one. Trust the plan. Just meaningless slogans for vacuous, empty people.
They plagiarized Alexander Dumas and his Three Musketeers.
He should sue.
That's right. Where we go one, we go all. It was like all for one, one for all was what he said. It was a little bit more concise, right?
In that case, you should be able to get them all in one lawsuit.
Yeah. American intelligence has been shared with Kiev, has enabled strikes on important Russian energy assets, including oil refineries far beyond the front line, according to multiple Ukrainian and U.S. officials familiar with the campaign. And you think you deserve the Peace Prize? What an idiot this guy is. The previously unreported support has intensified since midsummer and has been crucial in helping Ukraine carry out attacks that Biden's White House discouraged. Kiev's strikes have driven up energy prices in Russia and have prompted Moscow to cut diesel exports and to import fuel. Trump has deepened his support for Ukraine as his frustration with Russia has grown. The U.S. intelligence agency helps Kiev shape route planning, altitude, timing, and mission decisions, enabling Ukraine's long-range one-way attack drones to evade Russian air defenses, said officials familiar with the matter. And, of course, it's U.S. intelligence that gets us involved in one war after the other that we lose, that we wind up making the situation much worse than it was before we got involved. These three people familiar with the operation said that Washington was closely involved in all stages of planning, of course. A U.S. official said Ukraine selected the targets for long-range strikes. Washington then provided intelligence on the site's vulnerabilities. But others involved and briefed on the operation said the U.S. had also set out target priorities for Ukrainians. One of them described Kiev's drone force as an instrument for Washington to undermine Russian economy and to push Putin toward a settlement. Trump has been open about his disappointment with Putin since he rolled out the red carpet for his Russian counterpart at an Alaska summit that made little tangible progress. This was a factor in Trump's shift in support of deeper strikes, said the people. Well, I guess the question is, if you've got somebody who comes to you and says that he wants to broker a peace deal while he's arming the other side and helping them to shoot missiles into your country, would you really trust somebody like that? Putin's not a fool. You'd have to be an absolute fool to trust somebody who is a duplicitous dealer like Trump. Washington has long shared intelligence with Kiev to assist in attacks on Russian military targets and to provide advance warning of Russian missile and drone strikes. The Biden administration approved strikes with U.S. HIMARS and ATACMS, I guess, ATACMS. I guess I would pronounce that as ATACMS. Inside the Russian region bordering Ukraine, after North Korea deployed troops there to bolster Moscow's forces. The U.S. has not acknowledged a direct role in the Ukraine's strikes on Russian energy facilities. However, going back long before Russia invaded Ukraine, you had Lindsey Graham and John McCain go there. I played the clip before for you, where Lindsey Graham said to the Ukrainians that were assembled, next year we're going to go into Russia. We're going to get Putin. Why would you deal with a country like that? And does he understand what's going on? Does Putin understand what's going on? Of course he does. The growing operational support from the Trump administration starkly contrasts with the earlier in the U.S. president's second term, when he briefly halted intelligence sharing and military aid to Kiev to pressure it into talks with Moscow. Zelensky said Ukraine was working with U.S. intelligence primarily to defend ourselves. And Ukraine's recent success in deep strikes is mostly because of technological upgrades to drones, increased domestic production, which has allowed Kiev to launch more at once. Our drone missiles, and some missiles are getting better We have more uses and we have greater production, he said. Well, White House officials said the war never would have happened under a Trump presidency. Well, yeah, fine. But Trump can't stop it? Isn't it kind of interesting that just like inflation, wars take on a life of their own? It's very easy for a government to start inflation, but once it happens, you can't pull it back in. It's very easy for the government to start a war that it can't stop. And that is exactly what is being done on both fronts by this Trump administration.
Yeah. Whether you generate the hate falsely at the beginning, once a country has been engaged in a war with another country, the hate becomes real. Because you've seen, your best friend, your brother, who knows who, die at their hands, and they've seen the same exact thing.
Yeah, it's bad enough when it's soldiers that's happening. That galvanizes you, but when they start attacking civilians, and you start killing children, and you're digging children out of the rubble, then it really gets deep. That's why it's so difficult to stop these things after they get kicked off like that. Well, we got some comments. Why don't you grab those?
That's right. Patty Wax. As the deep state says, all we have to do is wait out max 8 years and another sucker comes into power. That's right. The true power behind the throne is bureaucracy.
Yeah.
Not that Trump isn't doing everything they want currently.
Yeah. He's a real good sucker. Real Jason Barker. There are many frames by the manufacturers that use Glock slides. They will never track them all down. That's right. You'll always be able to get the Glock. Put the Gonzo on it. Bronx Stomper.
Well, it's like any prohibition. You can't stop the alcohol. You can't stop the pot. You can't stop the opioids. You can't fill in the blank, right? Prohibition just doesn't work.
They definitely won't be able to stop the 3D printers.
Yeah.
Bronx Stomper 111. All the P90 lowers and kits out there making up all those scary ghost guns, Jason. That's right. The P90, very spooky. Audi MRR. Justice Sotomayor proved that she was all in with the COVID agenda. The Supreme Court is clearly compromised, too. Yeah, there's not an element of our government that doesn't have at least infiltration. I would not be surprised if they were all in on it if you make it past a certain level. Tunnel Lord 1337. Didn't the Supreme Court put Japanese Americans in internment camps in World War II?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes. Is PEX?
It also said that you can't exercise your religion freely in school, right? I don't believe a thing the Supreme Court says. They decided that they would determine when life begins and on. So,
and they've been wrong on all of it.
And they redefined marriage after it's been around for eternity, for all practical purposes since creation. And they decided they would redefine it. What arrogance!
The Constitution, things like what a woman is, these aren't difficult to determine. When they have these big, long, rambling speeches to justify why they can't just say what a woman is, it's clear that they aren't, applying common sense to the laws and trying to give you an honest take on it.
That's right. And she was that way. Ketanji Brown was that way going in.
Yeah, she had the longest opening monologue of any Supreme Court justice ever.
Yeah.
And it was by a long shot, too. Yeah. Despite her having I believe, either the least impressive or one of the least impressive records for any judge, that has ever been appointed to the Supreme Court, she felt the need to ramble and monologue longer than any of the other ones ever have.
The judges only need one qualification. It doesn't matter how many times they've clerked for some Supreme Court justice or how many different degrees and honors they've got. Do they believe and honor and respect the Constitution or not? That's the bottom line. And I would. It's too bad that we didn't get Andrew Napolitano on, but he would only be in 1 out of 9 people.
Yeah.
There. So.
Sadly.
Yeah.
We have Tunnel Lord 1337. Oh snap! Qatar is putting a base in Idaho. That's not good. Idaho's been trying to pass a domestic terrorist bill for the last 5 years. I wonder if they'll try to do a false flag in Idaho to get that bill passed. They're gonna take out our strategic potato reserve.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe it'll turn the base into a golf course for Trump after they leave.
How thoughtful of them. Tunnel Lord continues, while on the top of the mountain home base in Idaho during a committee hearing where one of the commanders from the base were talking to the state legislator, he said they can remotely control jets from the base in Idaho.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. The interesting thing is we know that they could do that. When we look back at Operation Northwoods, That's what they were talking about doing at the time. And they've been able to remotely control planes to fly them forever. I mean, that was back in the early 60s. And so we didn't really see the remote control drones and things like that until after 9/11. But prior to that, how do you think they got all of the pictures that they had of crashing commercial airlines to test them for safety and to see what happened? They would put crash test dummies in the airplanes, and they would fly them and then crash them, and then take the footage that was and the cameras that always seemed to be able to survive. The joke is, why don't you make the whole plane out of whatever it is that you make that camera case out of, and we'll be better off. But they would do that. There wasn't a pilot that flew that into the ground. They were doing that remote control, but I don't know what happened. Clearly, the planes, whether they were planes or whether the projections of planes or whatever, we've had a lot of different ideas about that. I lean toward the idea of advanced explosives put on the building, even more so than directed energy weapons. But whatever happened, I think we can be certain that the government is lying to us. And because of the way they used it, I think they're the ones who did it.
Mm. ISPEX 08. There's only one major carry of the old Glock over here, and that is the Australian police. Not as popular in Australia. Or is there some specific reason? Are more people not allowed to buy it? I know Australia has some fairly strict gun laws, so I'm not up on what they are. So, Francine, it's amazing. Like Biden leaving weapons and war engines in Afghanistan went without any more noise. Well, they just assume we're back to business as usual. Oh, they like us again.
Yeah, weapons, war engines, and massive pallets of cash left behind there in Afghanistan.
Why couldn't it be me?
Not to mention the people that had helped the U.S. military that they left there stranded. So
it's the U.S. government treats Al-Qaeda better than it does its own citizens.
It does.
And it's not even close.
Yeah, they're trying to take away our weapons while they give them massive stockpiles of great weapons.
KWD68. Why can't they train in Qatar? Why do we need to train them? Why are we involved in every pissing contest in the world? We are bringing peace. Laughing emoji. That's right.
Yeah, well, because these wars, just like these contracts with Qatar, are about making money for the military-industrial complex. It doesn't have anything to do with protecting this country. It's about making the military-industrial complex rich. So it's about.
For Love of the Road. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. National Association for Gun Rights had a good post on Instagram recently showing an old Sears or JCPenney ad for guns you could order and have shipped to your door. We used to be a real country. We used to be a real country that was really about things.
Yeah, and you used to be able, if you're going on a hunting trip, let's say shoot pheasant in South Dakota or something like that, you could carry the gun on the plane with you, and the stewardess would help you to put it into the coat rack that was there by the front door. So.
Well, then we had all those hijackings by those pheasant hunters out of South Dakota or wherever.
Got to keep the pheasants in line. Yeah.
The pheasants are revolting. Citizen of America, because when there are so many unhinged individuals committing such mass atrocities on a daily basis, the obvious choice is to relieve the law-abiding citizen of the right to defend himself. Exactly. Well, don't you know, once you outlaw guns in Chicago, everyone in O Block will turn them in and the feuds will stop. They'll stop killing each other.
Yes.
It'll just work. It just works. Christian Constitutional Conservative, that statement verifies that D.C. is directing this war with Russia. Nibiru 2029, every business Emperor Trump's ever run, he's run into the ground either by bankruptcy or legal loss. Yeah, I wouldn't put him at the helm.
Yeah, Lucky Loser. That was the book that I still haven't read it yet. That's the book that got him so upset that he sued not only the New York Times, but it was also the publisher of that book. $15 billion lawsuit that got him.
Was
in
it
there.
Penguin? Penguin's the one that's coming to mind.
Might be, but that tells you that they were over the target, I think. Lucky Loser. Yeah. Are we done here with this? Yeah,
we've covered all the comments.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I want to talk about these battery energy storage site things, and the fact that this is kind of like the COVID stuff. None of this stuff has been tested. They don't even have a standard for what one of these batteries should be, and this is something that should concern everybody. This story is about what's going on in Massachusetts, but it's happening across the country. Here in Tennessee, the TVA is wanting to put these battery energy storage sites all over the place to back up their unreliable so-called renewables of solar and wind. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Analyzing the globalists' next move. And now, the David Knight Show.
If you like the Eagles,
On a dark desert highway,
the Cars, and Huey Lewis in the News,
they say the heart of rock and roll is forbidden.
you'll love the Classic Hits channel at APS Radio. Download our app or listen now at apsradio.com.
The deadly grid battery fallacy that's been exposed in Massachusetts. Let's just go back for a moment, though, and take a look at what Dan Rather was saying in the early 80s about global warming. Yeah, Dan Rather of CBS. Well, you can trust them, can't you?
Concern about rising temperatures on planet Earth heated up a hearing here in Washington today. For years, scientists have theorized about the dangers of the so-called greenhouse effect, the warming of the Earth's atmosphere due to the burning of coal and oil. And in recent months, as David Culhane reports, research has uncovered facts to support that theory.
Many scientists claim that the temperature of the Earth's atmosphere has been rising over the past 100 years, that the great sheets of pack ice in Antarctica are melting at a much more rapid rate than previously. And finally, that the sea level has been rising with increasing swiftness over the past 40 years. If these scientists are correct, about 25% of Florida would be flooded, along with low-lying areas all over the world. Climate changes could produce widespread disruption of agriculture. The American farm belt might be too dry, and the wheat and corn crops would have to move to Canada. Scientists blame the odorless, colorless carbon dioxide gas for these potentially dangerous changes around the planet. It is the greenhouse effect. The gas allows sunlight to filter down and warm the Earth. But like the glass of a greenhouse, the carbon dioxide tends to trap heat so that it cannot rise into space. The scientists maintain that the coal, oil, and gas we've been burning for 100 years have produced more and more carbon dioxide and helped overheat the Earth. Now,
And of course, that's how the insanity began. And here we find ourselves today with our power being shut down all over the world. You notice how they said scientists have discovered facts to support the theory. So the theory came first, and then they went in search of the facts. Bring me the man and I'll find the crime. Bring me the theory that we're going to use to shut down power across the globe, and I'll supply you with some rigged facts. And of course, the man to do that was the man himself, Michael Mann, who did that. But an alert in Massachusetts from a watchdog group has blown the whistle on the Department of Environmental Protection there for issuing potentially catastrophic guidance for building grid-scale battery facilities. They're specifying a standard which was meant for small batteries, making some of the rules deadly wrong when you scale it up to the size of a grid. It turns out that this fallacy is widespread nationally, making their warning much more important. Massachusetts is rushing an enormous grid battery build-out that's being driven by their 2024 Energy Act. something like 3,500 megawatts of battery projects are to be built around the state in the next 2 years or so. This is a massive malinvestment, and it is going to make us poor. It's going to leave us in the dark when we have governments that are doing this. A 40-foot-long tractor-trailer-sized battery is typically just 1 megawatt. So if they want 3,500 megawatts, think about setting up 3,500 tractor-trailer loads that are there, and that's what we're talking about. These are huge batteries. And we know the technology involved. We've seen it, spontaneously combusting, burning people in their cars when they're trapped in it, because the same people that gave us electric cars thought it'd be really super geeky fun to make sure that even the doors are under software control, and so people get trapped in these cars when they set on fire. The Energy Act required the Massachusetts bureaucracy to issue safety guidance for this build-out, which it did in August. Policy director of the Massachusetts Fiscal Alliance just blew the whistle. He said the battery guidance lacks the juice to deal with mass projects. The focus is on the National Fire Protection Association Standard 855. It is the standard for the installation of stationary energy storage systems. As he points out, this standard is only for small batteries, not for the giant batteries, the 40-foot-long batteries, and the battery complexes that are about to flood Massachusetts. He said, by way of scale, this NFPA Standard 855 is limited to batteries with a storage capacity of 50 kilowatt hours. But we're talking about batteries that have 1 megawatt hour. He said the max is 50 kilowatt hours or less. Such a battery might be used for emergency blackout protection in an office building. However, each of the state's Energy Act batteries is likely to have a capacity of 4 megawatt hours or more. So anywhere from 1 to 4 megawatts. Giant batteries that are 80 times larger than the standard 855 allows are not adequately covered by the standard. Unfortunately, as of yet, there are no national standards for batteries of this scale. This kind of reminds me of Operation Warp Speed, doesn't it? We're going to rush this thing out. We haven't tested it. We don't know what it's going to do, but you're going to get this in a big way. The government is constantly doing this. That's the way they run all this, just like Trump's fake it till he makes it authority to do all these things. They rush out there with this stuff and they say, stop me. Applying this standard would be catastrophically wrong. The standard says that when there are multiple batteries, they should be 3 feet apart, so that if one burns, it will not ignite its neighbors. That tiny spacing would provide no protection at all in the case of these giant batteries that are being mandated, the Battery Energy Storage Sites, BESS. The greatest risk of these huge batteries is that a single battery burning has the potential to set the entire complex on fire. This is not a theory. We have seen this in several places, Canada, Germany, France. We've had the electric buses, which again, these are large batteries, but they are not as big as these battery energy storage site things. So those large batteries, once they started and caught on fire, spontaneously in some cases, burned down entire depots, every single EV bus. And it happened in Munich, and it happened in, I forget the other place in Germany. Happened in 2 places in Germany, happened in France, and they had a situation in Canada as well. And so what they did in these places were burn down every single bus at the complex because one of them caught fire. They went back to diesel. And so now they want to do something that's even bigger and concentrate all these things together.
What could go wrong? One of our listeners, North American House Hippo, drives a bus, and he said they had one of their electric buses catch fire. And thankfully, it was when it was an empty lot. It was basically the only one sitting there, so it only managed to, I believe, damage one other bus. But this is happening. It's common enough that our listener, who just drives, happens to drive a bus, and they have electric buses there, one of them just goes off.
Yeah. Well, we've seen pictures of electric vehicles that spontaneously combust in parking garages and things like that. This is a known problem with lithium batteries. The technology is not ready yet. And these people are pushing this in an inappropriate way. It's extremely expensive. It's very dangerous. But, of course, that's what government does all the time.
China had a very amusing solution to this. I put the video in the deck a while ago that we haven't played.
Yeah, go ahead and play that.
So just shoot your burning battery out.
Like a rocket, yeah. Going to eject it. We got a safety issue, just eject the battery. And
now it becomes a safety issue for the next person beside you. It's not your safety issue anymore.
That's the ultimate kick the can down the road. Eject the flaming battery down the road as well.
Whoever's next to you, that's their problem now.
Yes. So, this whole thing, it's been a scam forever, and people need to wake up to it. That's been one of the good things about Trump. He's not only said that, but he has actually taken some action in this second term to do that. So hopefully they'll continue, unless somebody with some deeper pockets gets a hold of him. The American Clean Power Association has a fact sheet. They say that, and they refer to the same standard, but they never mention the fact that the standard is set up for a 50 kilowatt hour limitation. Even worse, it features a grid scale battery background photo, and it's not about that at all. The deeper question is why the standard has not been issued for a giant grid scale battery. There is a grid scale battery building boom that is going on, and while recent legislation is rapidly phasing out lucrative studies for wind and solar, it left untouched the similar subsidies for giant batteries. Maybe they're not coming up with a standard because they don't want you to know that there's a problem. That might be the issue, because there's a lot of money still to be made in this thing. So as I pointed out yesterday briefly, there's a huge spike, especially in the UK, with the copper cables that are being stolen from the charging places for the EVs. And when they take the copper cable, it leaves you stranded. They get the copper strands, and you get stranded. A couple of years ago, the Telegraph carried a piece reporting that the International Energy Agency was warning of the need to step up the mining of lithium, copper, and nickel if the international net zero targets are to be met. The problem is, if we get the net zero, we don't have any way to process those minerals because we can't do any manufacturing without power. And so they're kind of cutting this whole thing off. I said, think about today's growth sectors: renewable energy generation, electric vehicles. The one thing they all have in common is an insatiable appetite for copper. It requires 3 times as much copper to generate the same amount of electricity on a solar farm as it does in a gas-fired power station. Nearly 8 times as much if you're using offshore wind. And so the price rises are not linear, they have gone exponential. Trump's latest 100% tariffs on China have caused a significant drop, but there's a limit as to what customers will pay for copper. So, but evidently not if you are a thief in the UK. And they have a lot of stories there about people who just show up. One guy shows up, first he clips everything, then he disappears. They get him on the video camera. So first he clips the cables and he walks off into the woods. And then the same guy comes back later with a truck to grab the cables. So he doesn't park his truck there, but then he comes up very quickly. The irony is that he's got an EV truck as well, which is, I don't know, he's got the kind of getaway car that he needs with that. But maybe he hasn't thought this thing through all the way.
It's silent. They can't hear you coming.
So we're talking about a tremendous amount of money that is stacking up, and a tremendous percentage of these stations that are being attacked in the UK. Al Gore's got a new startup to track fossil fuel emissions by satellite and by artificial intelligence. And so what he's talking about, folks, and this is the real threat with AI, he's now got a way to correlate this to see what you're doing because of artificial intelligence. And so what he's doing is he's going to use satellite and AI to determine where there is greenhouse gases. They said there's no way to track CO2, but of course we all exhale CO2. Animals do. It's not a problem. It's necessary. It's a good thing. But they're going to track methane as well. And they're not going to be sniffing it. They're going to be looking at it with their company's called Climate Trace. It uses satellites to monitor the location of heat-trapping methane sources. He expanded his system to track the source and the plume of pollution from tiny particles, often referred to as soot, on a neighborhood basis for 2,500 cities across the world. And then this article from AP News propagates the lie that I've been pushing back against for 13 years now. This was something that was going on in North Carolina, the particulate matter 2.5 that the EPA was involved in. And if you recall the report that I did at the time, there where we were living in North Carolina in Research Triangle Park, the EPA had a facility there, and they hooked people up to, they'd filtered out the carbon monoxide so that it wouldn't kill them outright, but they hooked them up directly to the tailpipe, almost directly to the tailpipe, of a diesel. And they had searched for people who had either respiratory or cardiac issues. And we had one of the researchers that was there noticed that they had to take people to the emergency room, and he started doing research on it. And he found that they were actually looking for people like that. And they were trying to set the standard up. They already had a standard, and they were exposing people to 72 times the amount of pollution that was in the standard. And as this was all happening, and of course the group that I was with sued them and tried to get this to stop, tried to get a temporary restraining order on it, because they said that there was not informed consent, that they were dangerously experimenting on the people who had signed up for this, and they were. But the reality is that you had Lisa Jackson, who was Obama's Secretary of the EPA or Secretary of the EPA, whatever the position is. She ran the EPA. She went on to Capitol Hill, and she had a back and forth little dog and pony show they had arranged with a Massachusetts congressman who has now become a Massachusetts senator, rewarded for this little betrayal of the American people. And they had this little dialogue going back and forth. You could tell because he stepped on her lines and read some of her lines, and then she had to backtrack. The whole thing was planned and scripted. And she said, I'm not talking about people getting sick from pollution. I'm talking about people dying. And we got more people dying from this fine particulate matter than are dying from cancer and heart disease. It's the number one killer that we have in our country. It's like, oh, really? And so if that were true, and you are exposing people to this at a level that is 72 times what you say is safe, what does that say about you? So,
well, wasn't it 72 times the thing that they said was life-threatening, and they exposed people that they had specifically screened for respiratory issues to something that was 72 times above their life-threatening level?
That's right. And, of course, the people didn't die. That's the other thing about it. A couple of people got sick and had to be taken to the hospital, but nobody died. So the whole thing was a lie. They were criminal in their intent. But the reality is that they exposed that it's not the dangerous thing that they say that it is. But here we are 13 years later, and Associated Press, the Associated Propaganda people, say particle pollution kills millions of people worldwide each year. No, it doesn't. Tens of thousands in the U.S., according to scientific studies and reports. Oh, yeah, that's what science says. Well, it's total BS. Gore's coalition will use 300 satellites, 30,000 ground tracking sensors, and AI to track 137,000 sources of particle pollution, with 4,000 of them categorized as super emitters. It's difficult before AI, said Gore, for people to really see precisely where this conventional air pollution is coming from. So now he's going to have some AI hallucinating the climate MacGuffin for us. When it's over,
no one could see the effects of this, but here I made a map and I drew a whole bunch of lines on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Of lines on it so you can see where all the stuff that I want you to be afraid of is.
That's right. Just like COVID, just like the other MacGuffin, right? You can't see this except on the news, but if you look at the news, you can clearly see that there's a pandemic. And if you look at his screen here, you can clearly see that it's killing everybody. Again, particulate pollution that kills almost 9 million people every year, said Gore in a video interview. And they just repeat that lie. So a top UN court has claimed that all governments must fight CO2. They have a legal duty under international law, they said. But CO2 is actually also the gas of life. It is very, very important, both to animals and to plants. So The Climate Depot chief, Mark Morano, sees this as an act of desperation from the UN. He says, facing the insurmountable collapse of their global climate agenda, with the overwhelming majority of nations not even trying to pretend to meet the climate obligations anymore, the UN High Court has ruled that nations are compelled and have no choice but to comply or to pay repatriations and to fund climate justice programs. See, that's the thing. Everybody can see where this all leads now. We could see where it was going to lead forever, but now they can actually see the effects kicking in. It may be too late for them to pull back, but they're trying to pull back very much so, and so the UN is getting very desperate in terms of this. Let's cover a couple of comments here, and let's take a break.
That's right. KWD68, I read that the IDF is continuing to destroy tunnels and blow up buildings as they withdraw, quote unquote. I wouldn't be surprised. Trump Burger, warp speed was the greatest achievement in human history. Clown emoji. That's right. Another quote from our wonderful leader. Skunk Hollow Rose Gardens, how are you gonna go golf where people were starving? That would be bad for my posture and inevitably my swing. Well, when you're a complete psycho and you don't care, I suppose it's not that big a deal. KWD68, Trump says we need to send troops back to Afghanistan. Oh boy.
Yeah. How's that? Give him a peace prize for that alone, right?
Back to Baghdad.
Yeah.
Christian Constitutional Conservative. In Australia, civilians can buy handguns, but only for specific, highly restricted purposes like sport or target shooting, and they must meet strict licensing requirements. Owning a handgun for self-defense is not a valid reason and is illegal. That's right. If someone is going to hurt you, you just have to take it. Nibiru 2029. Remote-controlled aircraft have been around longer and far easier to control than any remote-controlled vehicle. Gun laws are written to protect the aristocracy, not the general public. Yeah. KWD68. Man down the road has an EV he charges in his garage. I keep expecting to see fire. No way I would have that in my house. Yeah, no.
I remember the first time I saw a house in the news, a house burned down in North Carolina, not too far from where we were. It was a Nissan Leaf that they were charging in their garage. It caught fire and burned the entire house down.
They're just not safe.
Well, I mean, look at New York. Look at how many fires they've had. And a lot of people have died from recharging they weren't recharging them even, evidently, I don't
scooters,
think. Those electric scooters, yeah.
They just have those lithium batteries in there, and you're expecting these people to not abuse them, not damage them, which is an insane thing to ask when it's not their property. They are going to do stupid things with them, and the battery housing is going to get damaged. KWD68.
Gotten one of these battery ejection systems and launched at their neighbors.
That's right.
They got that idea from James Bond, right? Whatever you do, don't touch that switch. Said Q, right?
I press the button. What happens if you accidentally press the button, Just all of a sudden, how hard is it to reattach the batteries? KWD68. Dan Rather, forget the impending ice age. We are warming now. Same scientist who said ice age was coming 2 years before.
That's right. He was right there at the cusp of the change. That was when they did the about face and said, no more cooling, now going to warming. Thanks for pointing that out. That's right.
In just a singular lifetime, they have changed the story who knows how many times. Francine, I don't believe in the solar system anymore. Sad I want to, but...
Well, I guess, I don't know, are we talking about the solar system to back up your house, or are we talking about the solar system that actually, the sun that actually affects the climate? That's the driver of the climate.
Yeah.
I do believe in the solar system.
I thought you were talking about solar systems, which
photovoltaic.
They do work well in small scale.
That's what they're for. That's what they're, that's your lifeline off of the big grid system. And of course, you don't even have to have a battery. The battery is always the issue. If you could live with just having power when the sun is shining in your house, that would be one thing. But getting off of the grid is a good use. But when you make this scale it up to the size that we need for the grid, it doesn't work. It's not scalable. That's the real issue with the solar power stuff.
We have KWD68, Rachel Carson, Silent Spring in 62, birds didn't die, no ice age, no acid rain, no ozone hole, no warming. Plenty of lies. Zoxav Oxaz, remember that video of the guy trapped in the elevator with his moped battery? Yeah, that was that must have been terrifying. I don't remember if he survived or not. KWD68, California needs to put those batteries in the forest to finish them off.
Well, that's the other thing, too. Somebody said a headline of one of these things was, arsonist burns down the climate fear agenda. Because they found out the large Palisades fire in California was not because of global warming. They caught, or the guy confessed that he had done it as arson. And they were really had doubled down on that. See, all these fires are all about climate change. And
it was a crazy person who had been talking to ChatGPT and talking about how, it felt so good to burn a Bible or something like that.
So, I guess we could blame it on AI, not on climate change.
Ispex08, thank you very much. Appreciate the tip. Says, please call climate change by its absurd new name coined by Al Gore, I believe, global boiling. Think about how delicious all the crab in the ocean will be once we're finished.
It's a climate MacGuffin. That's what it really is. Yeah.
KWD68, we have to build the battery to see what's in it. Nibiru 2029. As with most things, Massachusetts, the legislature will change the law to fit the battery grid.
Yeah.
KWD68, multiple cargo ships full of cars have sunk because of battery fires. Yeah, we've covered at least 2 of them since the spring.
Huge, yeah.
Real Octo Spook, we elected Trump to lock down borders and deport criminal invaders. Nothing has changed. That's right. Citizen of America says, suck on.
Another thing with all the big publicity of these ICE raids and all that, you forget it's not effective. He's not actually doing anything to stop immigration. We're still, incentivizing these people. Still massive illegal immigration. He's just also adding a police state to it.
Yeah, we still got the pot of gold there to draw them in. So.
Citizen America says, suck on this tailpipe. That's right. That's what they were having you do.
Yeah, there was a video of it where they had like little masks over them with a pipe going to essentially...
It was directly connected. It was utterly ridiculous. Yeah. The type of thing that I think would just about make anyone nauseous, just because of the smell and just sounds disgusting.
Yeah. Imagine if you had anything in sufficient quantity will kill you, including water. So on the same basis as the way they do this so-called test, they could use it to claim that all water has to be eliminated, and that's probably coming too.
I mean, when I briefly had my motorcycle in Austin, sitting around in traffic in the summer heat with just the exhaust coming out of you, I thought I was going to be sick quite a few times. Just
I know. I drive a convertible in Austin, so.
And of course, with the amount of trucks they have there in Texas, it's just piping the exhaust directly in over the top of the convertible.
Yeah.
Real Octo Spook, read that one. Real Octo Spook, haven't read this one. Attacking CO2, the gas of life for all life, is simply paying attention to detail in their war on we the people and all life. KWD68, car manufacturers making internal combustion vehicles that seem to be making EV an easier sale. Even Toyota is producing a lot of garbage now.
Yeah, that's right. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to take a look as we're talking about what's happening with the excuse for a civil war here, the war within. We had a back and forth over the weekend with George Stephanopoulos and J.D. Vance. They got into a fight over Tom Homan. So I want to play that a little bit for you and talk about what that really tells us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to The David Knight Show.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my only friend. The end of our elaborate plans. The end of everything that stands.
You got that up on.
No safety or surprise. The end. I'll never look into your eyes again.
Very unsafe places, and we're going to straighten them out one by one.
They're saying you're trying to take over the republic.
And this is going to be a major part for some of the people in this room. That's a war, too. It's a war from within. I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military.
Can you picture what will be? So little reckless and free, desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land.
Yeah, exactly. So we have, when we look at this, you're losing credibility, says J.D. Vance. By the way, that clip, you got that up yesterday on X, right? That we just played, the Trump.
I transferred it to you. The text had implied that you were going to upload.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get it up, folks.
It's done. It's ready.
It's done. I asked Travis to bug it, and we have a failure of what we have here is failure to communicate. That's right. And it happens over and over again. Well, I also had in the deck here we go. ABC cut the feed on JD. They were arguing back and forth as to whether or not Tom Homan actually accepted a bag with $50,000 cash in it in exchange for agreeing to do some contracts with the people who were giving him the bag of cash. And so J.D. Vance was asked point blank by George Stephanopoulos if that happened or not and why they aren't doing anything about it. And listen to the evasion that goes on with J.D. Vance.
I don't know what tape you're referring to, George. I saw media reports that Tom Homan accepted a bribe. There's no evidence of that. And here's, George, why fewer and fewer people watch your program and why you're losing credibility. Because you're talking for now 5 minutes with the Vice President of the United States about this story regarding Tom Homan, a story that I've read about, but I don't even know the video that you're talking about. Meanwhile, low-income women can't...
He's not interested if he's taking a bribe, right?
Chuck Schumer have shut down the government. Right now, we're trying to figure out how to pay our troops because Chuck Schumer has shut down the government. You are focused on a bogus story. You're insinuating criminal wrongdoing against a guy who has done nothing wrong instead of focusing on the fact that our country is struggling because our government's shut down. Let's talk about the real issues, George. I think the American people would benefit much more from that than from you going down some weird left-wing rabbit hole where the facts clearly show that Tom Homan didn't engage in any criminal wrongdoing.
It's not a weird left-wing rabbit hole. I didn't insinuate...
How can you say the facts don't show it if you haven't looked at the facts?
$50,000, as was heard on an audio tape recorded by the FBI in September 2024, and you did not answer the question. Thank you for your time this morning.
No, George, I said that I don't...
Up next, we'll be right back.
Because it had gone on for quite some time. So Vance began by saying, he was asked about that. He said he accepted $50,000 in cash. September 2024, he's got the exact date. The FBI's got an audio tape of it. And what was not mentioned in the back and forth exchange by either of them was that the $50,000 wasn't some payment that was sent. So, maybe that was, I don't know what they were sending that to him for, but they gave it to him in a grocery bag that was filled with cash. That's not suspicious at all to J.D. Vance. And we know that Tom Homan can't be a bad guy because he's part of their administration. He doesn't need to be investigated. He's part of the Trump administration. He shouldn't be vetted with any of this stuff. So Vance began by saying, Tom Homan did not take a bribe. The reason you guys are going after Tom Homan so aggressively is because he's doing the job of enforcing the law. That's a question mark. He says, I think it's really preposterous. He's a good man. I think it would be a much more interesting story about why it is that Tom Homan, who is simply enforcing America's immigration laws, is getting constantly harassed and threatened. Stephanopoulos said, well, I'm not sure you answered the question. Are you saying that he did not accept the $50,000? Well, he didn't take a bribe. Did he accept $50,000? I'm not sure that in the course of Tom Homan's life, he has been paid more than $50,000 for services. So did he take it? You hear, if you listen to what J.D. Vance is saying, he has just destroyed his entire credibility. First of all, he says he's sure the guy's not guilty, but he doesn't know anything about the facts of the case. How can you be sure that he's not guilty if you don't know anything about the facts of the case? And when somebody makes an allegation that there is corruption, you don't care to investigate? Instead, you're going to say, well, I know he didn't do it, so we're not going to look. Stephanopoulos said, I'm asking you, did he accept the $50,000 he's caught on the surveillance tape? Did he accept that or not? Vance says, George, I don't know what you're talking about. Did he accept $50,000 for what? Stephanopoulos said he was recorded on an audio tape in September 2024, an FBI surveillance tape accepting $50,000 in cash. Did he keep that money? Vance said, accepting $50,000 for doing what, George? I'm sure that he gets paid frequently in a grocery bag full of cash, right? Whatever he does.
Who hasn't been paid in a grocery bag full of $50,000 before? Let ye who have not been paid in a grocery bag.
Actually, that was one of the things about Spiro Agnew was that he was getting suitcases of money. At least they dressed it up a little bit better than a grocery bag.
I know.
But he was getting massive amounts of cash given to him.
There's also the fact that with inflation, $50,000 really isn't even that much anymore. Like, it's a life-changing amount of money for you or I.
Yeah.
It's a massive amount for us. But you'd think that a government official,
So the guy who
the bribes aren't keeping up with inflation is all I'm saying.
So the guy who said, if the president does it, it's not against the law. It's not illegal or whatever. That guy, Richard Nixon, got rid of Spiro Agnew, his vice president, because he was accepting massive amounts of cash over the table in his office. But this administration is even worse, far worse. They don't even want to look at it. We know there's no issue here. Accepting $50,000 for what, George?
I was actually about to say, this interaction here reminds me of a scene from Futurama. There's a very famous one where Richard Nixon comes back, and he's a head in a jar, but he's still running for president. And he gets on the debate, and the question is, would you steal the candy from a baby? And Richard Nixon just starts sweating. He's like, well, the question is very vague. It doesn't even say what kind of candy it is. And at least I wouldn't hurt the child,
Yeah. And this is what he keeps saying. $50,000 for what? Is it illegal to take $50,000 for services? Yeah, if the services are going to be promises of government contracts. The FBI hasn't prosecuted him. Well, that's because you put in people like Kash Patel, who also doesn't have any credibility, just like you, just like Pam Bondi, just like Dan Bongino. None of these people have any credibility. And so they're covering for each other with this stuff, just as they covered for Trump with the Epstein stuff. I've never seen any evidence that he's engaged in criminal wrongdoing. Nobody has accused Tom of violating a crime. Did he accept $50,000? Honestly, George, I don't know the answer to that question. Stephanopoulos says, so you don't, what was caught on the tape? You're saying right now you don't know whether or not he kept that money? George, I think the American people would benefit much more from that than you going, if you were to talk about real issues, and he goes all the different problems that we're facing right now. You should talk about that instead of talking about Tom Homan's integrity. Clearly we know that we don't want to talk about corruption in the Trump administration, even when it's right in your face. And so, again, that was where we picked it up, where he said, well, it's not a left-wing rabbit hole. That's what he said. And so, yeah, and as I pointed out the other day, we have barcodes for politicians. That's exactly where we are with these people. Let's take a look at what is happening in the various manifestations of the church in various places, especially the Church of England. This is an amazing thing that's being done in the Canterbury Cathedral. And, of course, we understand why this is happening if you look at the people behind it. Lance, see if you can pull up this guy who is the artist responsible for this graffiti all over Canterbury Cathedral. The guy's name is Alex Vellis. He is the alleged artist behind all this, and he is LGBT. He's got his special pronouns and all the rest of the stuff. There he is.
Here's the horrifying picture.
Scroll down, you can see that he's in a dress, actually. So
be warned, folks. This is hard to look at.
Yeah. And then we have the graffiti itself. Pull the graffiti up that they've put on. I don't know if that's permanent or if it's removable. They put that up as some kind of a vinyl thing or
You'd
something.
think they would assume at least use water-soluble paint. There has to be something like that.
I don't
maybe
know.
Their hatred runs so deep that they don't care.
One person said, "Are you joking? Canterbury Cathedral, one of the holiest and most beautiful buildings in the UK, has been graffitied. Even worse, the church approved it and probably paid this guy a lot of money to do it. They say they worked with the marginalized communities to do this." Person says, "Shame on you for this." Except when you look at, this happened just a day or so after the newly appointed Archbishop of Canterbury, who is a woman. I don't know if this tranny art project is something that she approved or not, but I don't know if she's a lesbian or not. It looks like the LGBT has become pure antichrist. These are the people who have focused the attack on Christ, and that's exactly what this graffiti is. The graffiti questions God's goodness from an artist who identifies as a agender goblin. In other words, no gender, genderless, agender. He's a agender atheist.
Tolkien had the right idea on what you do with goblins.
And so again, this is the state of the Church of England. And when you look at the Canterbury Cathedral from the outside, it truly is amazing. There's nothing like this that would be built today by anyone, anywhere. They have graffitied the inside of this thing like it's some kind of a subway station or something. The new exhibit at Canterbury Cathedral features graffiti questioning God's goodness. It prompted J.D. Vance, Elon Musk, and others to claim the Church of England is humiliating itself. The art exhibit is titled "Hear Us." It highlights minorities while posing difficult questions to God. Well, it's because God had said, not hear us. He said, "This is my beloved son, hear him." But they don't want to hear him. So the questions, things that were put up there, are you there? Why did you create hate when love is far more powerful? Again, this guy not only calls himself a gender, but he identifies as a queer vegan, uses they, them pronouns. Other messages include, does everything have a soul? Do you regret your creation? Is illness sin? Others said, why all the suffering? If you made us in your own form, why the violence and the killing storms?
You know, he wrote a book with these questions answered.
There's an entire book that give you those answers, but evidently
it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
If you go to a church that isn't run by the Church of England, then you might actually get some answers to these questions that you are writing on the walls of the church.
Yeah, Ann Coulter said, and they wonder why Christians don't bother going to churches anymore. As a matter of fact, the former chaplain to Queen Elizabeth II said he was shocked by the graffiti. He said it belongs more to the architecture of a car park than to a modern church. He said there is nothing left at the center of the Church of England. The God-mocking graffiti in its most prominent church indicates decay, rebellion, and anger. He said, how is this congruent with the art of a cathedral? It's undermining. It has a different kind of aesthetic dissonance. And he said that doesn't help with the quest for God. They're not looking for God. They are trying to fight with God, and they're trying to fight with his people. The cathedral graffiti comes a week after the Church of England announced Sarah Mullally as the first female Archbishop of Canterbury. The installation of this woman who has openly affirmed abortion and homosexuality prompted some within the global Anglican communion to claim that the Church of England has been given over to apostasy. I would say that's a pretty safe conclusion. But all is not dead in the church. We have a great story that went viral, and this was a woman who was delivering pizza, and she shows up at this house where a pastor and his family lives, and she's got the wrong order, and I'll let you see what happened.
Hey, Neil. Okay. Yeah. Neil, I'm sorry. I'm getting old. I saw 67. It's not 67 or 57. You were number 67. So 57, 67. I screwed up. I'm sorry. I'm on my way back to get it right now. I will bring it back.
I think we can make it work. And hey, and don't for 1 second feel bad.
Well,
we love you and Jesus loves you. And we hope you have a great night. Don't feel bad for 1 second. We're having a great night.
Thank you. Okay.
You're welcome. You're very much loved. You know that. Do you know Jesus?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you living for Jesus?
I'm just struggling.
Oh,
because
yeah.
things have been pretty difficult lately.
Hey,
so.
girls, come here. We're going to pray for this really nice lady. What's your name?
My name's Susanna.
Oh, Susanna.
Yeah.
I'm Neil.
Come on,
Hey, girls.
boy.
Do you love this lady right here?
Yes.
Let's pray for her. Here, put it. Can I put my hand on your
Yeah,
shoulder?
okay,
And Evelyn, if you want to come over.
Yeah.
And your name one more time?
Susanna.
Susanna. Jesus, we thank you for Susanna. And Lord, I thank you that we cross paths tonight. In fact, Lord, she's more important than any of these orders tonight because you matter to her and she matters to us. Lord, I just pray you would bless her. I pray that you would open the windows of heaven over her and bring any healing she needs to her body in the name of Jesus, any financial need to her, Lord, and God, that she would encounter you and live for you and follow you with everything she has. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Hey, have a great
Thank
night.
you.
Bless
Okay.
you. Take care.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thanks, girl.
Take care.
That was, it's a lot nicer than most of what we get to cover on this show.
Yeah.
A lot more wholesome, I guess, is a term that a lot of people would use nowadays. But they actually also, as the article points out, set up a GoFundMe for her as well. And raised, I believe it's $3,400.
$34,000.
$34,000.
Yeah.
I left off as zero.
Yeah.
Math is not. The math was never my
She
strength.
takes care of her 82-year-old mother. Has had a lot of problems. Yeah. So they said in the GoFundMe, she's one of those people who spent her whole life putting others first. She's currently the full-time caregiver for her 82-year-old mom, as well as trying to earn money delivering pizzas. So
it's
a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's truly exemplifying being a good child, working at something that we all think of as just this, delivering pizzas, that's for teenagers. You do that as your first job, and then you move on to something bigger and better. But she's doing what she can.
That's
She's
right.
not ashamed. She's working how she has to. And
Working
it's
hard.
truly wonderful.
And so as that's happening, we take a look at this Canterbury Cathedral and the comical nonsense that is there. That's the real life that's happening there. And it's even more real when you look at what is happening in Pakistan and Nigeria. This particular story in Pakistan, this is a pastor who dies 3 days after he was finally acquitted on blasphemy charges that he had been locked in prison for 13 years for blasphemy charges in Pakistan. At one point, they'd given him the death sentence, but because he was appealing, that had not been carried out yet. But the 13 years in prison was a death sentence for this guy. He had already had 2 minor heart attacks. They did everything they could to torture him in prison. And finally, he was vindicated. The charge, again, was blasphemy. And this is, you look at this, and yes, this is coming from Muslims that's happening, but you can certainly see this that is in the pipeline with many Western societies when we talk about the fact they want to limit and punish what people say in terms of conversion therapy, they want to call it. And so we have Colorado and other jurisdictions. Virginia had its own law that got struck down. They're working very hard to try to criminalize the free speech and the free expression of religion. And this is what it looks like when they get it, what they want. The guy who was falsely imprisoned for 13 years. He died of cardiac arrest just 3 days after his acquittal. He returned home after being cleared by high court, but he collapsed before his family could make arrangements for medical care. They'd asked that he could get medical care the entire time that he was there, but they would not give it to him. Again, this is Pakistan. He was arrested in July of 2012 after a local cleric, Muslim cleric, had accused him of sending text messages that insulted the mother of Islamic prophet Muhammad. And, I guess the mother of all false religions. Wait a minute, you insulted his mother? He had 2 minor heart attacks while in custody. He was repeatedly petitioned for bail on medical grounds, arguing that the prison conditions were inadequate and had worsened his condition. He was also tortured in custody to confess. Sentenced to life in prison, but they nearly executed him as part of this. They also added that charge to it. He had at least 47 hearings that were scheduled between his conviction and his final release. Each one was adjourned without resolution. So they kept bringing him in and stringing him along with this so-called legal system that was there. Despite medical warnings, including a 2019 doctor's note that a 3rd heart attack could be fatal, he remained in custody until his acquittal last Thursday. 3 years earlier, a Sessions Court had escalated his punishment to a death sentence, though that was not carried out. So again, this is how some people take their religion seriously. Some of them take it seriously enough to help others. Others take it seriously enough to face death. And these clowns that have been spoiled rotten in the Church of England with all the money that they get is just amazing. Nigerian Christians are seeing, of course, an increase in killings and kidnappings. It doesn't stop, and it just keeps escalating. Germany, by the way, has a war on Christianity, and part of that is the open border and the hatred of the Islamic people that are being brought in. But it's also the collapse of Germany's faith. Germany's open border experiment has unleashed a wave of anti-Christian hatred fueled by imported Islamic intolerance, protected by left-wing politicians and ignored by cowardly media, leaving the once Christian heart of Europe desecrated, demoralized, on the brink of spiritual collapse. You know, it's Friedrich Nietzsche who said, God is dead. We have killed him, he said. No, what they did was they killed God in their hearts. And that was done back in the 1800s. The whole idea of higher criticism, everything, was something that was started in Germany, and we see the fruit of it in the Weimar Republic corruption and in the rise of Hitler. And now we see it continuing in Germany with the persecution of Christians, bringing in Muslims in large numbers. Again,
another thing that's worth noting is that when Nietzsche said God is dead, that was sort of a lament on his part. You know, we have killed God, and now our
what
structures,
happens?
What do we do now?
That's right.
You know, whereas the average person who says that thinks Nietzsche is celebrating that we've killed him. We can now engage in our truly rational pursuits. Our minds are free from this superstition. Even Nietzsche, who, they're misquoting him because he was terrified of this. They
lost the foundation of their society. They lost the moral foundation of it, which we have as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wanting the fruit, not the root. Who was it that said, "Don't tell the servants there is no God; they'll steal the silverware."
Yeah, I don't know who that was. I remember that quote. Yeah. They say this hatred has been imported, and yet there's enough hatred in Germany for Christianity to start with. Remember, the family, homeschooling family that fled from Germany, was given asylum here. That Biden, of all the millions of people that came in illegally, he didn't try to deport them. Instead, he wanted to focus on this Christian homeschooling family that had been given asylum, that were really politically persecuted. They were going to have their children taken away, and they might have been put in prison themselves if they went back. And so you have Germany attacking homeschoolers. They attack the opposition party, AfD. Immigration has created new tensions around Christianity in public life, a diplomatic understatement for the Islamic contempt towards Christians that has now taken root in German streets, schools, and neighborhoods. The same leftist politicians who opened the borders have now criminalized dissent They label anyone who points to this correlation as Islamophobic. They have burned Bibles, they have decapitated statues, they have destroyed confessionals. Many church buildings have now closed their doors. And so the German Bishops' Conference called the pattern open hostility against Christianity. These attacks are not merely material damage, but an assault on belief itself and a disruption of religious life. They demand systematic prosecution. And I noticed that the response from the Christians there, they decided when they came along and burned their Bibles and they decapitated their statues, they would just close the church. Except the churches are not closing in Nigeria, even though their homes are being burned and the people are being decapitated by the Muslims. They still hang tough. Tells you everything you need to know about the state of the church in Germany. Germany's political class is so quick to condemn offenses against other faiths, has met the persecution of Christians with silence and bureaucratic indifference. Fred Mertz publicly mourned the rising anti-Semitism, but no comparable outcry came for the desecration of churches or the harassment of Christian faithful. Meanwhile, public officials and left-leaning media outlets continue to frame such acts as isolated vandalism or the product of youth delinquency. Misguided youths. The closure of churches like St. Antonios is more than a local tragedy. It is a symbol of Europe's spiritual collapse. As Germany's Christian heritage is desecrated, its leaders remain paralyzed by political correctness. Well, they're not paralyzed. They want this to happen. That's exactly what they want to happen. Unless the West finds the courage to defend its own faith and heritage, Germany's fate will soon be all of ours. That's right. Meanwhile, in the UN, the UNESCO, which is the educational branch of the UN, they have gone straight for homeschooling. The amazing thing, this is an article from Alex Newman, and the amazing thing I think about all this is that the guy that's running this, that's coming up with guidelines for education and is coming up with tactics to attack homeschoolers, is a guy who was the education minister in North Korea.
So, what an authority.
Yeah. Well,
it's the perfect resume for what they want him to do.
That's right. I've literally called these schools re-education camps for the longest time. My friend who went to West Point, when he came back to Tampa, and I introduced him to some of my college friends, I said, we were incarcerated in an institution for several years together. Like, what? And I said, oh, yeah, I'm talking about the schools. But yeah, that's the way I viewed it, as a re-education camp. But it didn't stick with me, at least. I don't know. This guy was Guang Chol Chang. He is the former head of the education ministry in North Korea. And so what he's doing is he's calling for the enforcement of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. Remember, that's what I did back in 2009, I think it was. Yeah, I did for the parentalrights.org, they're trying to get a small constitutional amendment in that would protect parents as being the ones that the children belong to. And the Republicans are not interested in that at all. They don't say it out loud like Melissa Harris Perry does, that you got to get over the idea that your children belong to you. They don't. They belong to the village. Hillary has said that. She said that as a PSA for CNBC. But the Republicans aren't doing anything to stop it. They could easily encode that in law, and I would think that would be a winning cause for them. Who wouldn't like to wrap themselves in mom and apple pie? Well, evidently not the GOP. They're guarding our pedophiles now. So the calls for total control are clear, portrayed as mandatory. Governments must implement oversight mechanisms such as registration and evaluations and demand more regulatory capacity, he says. And so this is all about controlling what is taught, because if you control what is taught, you control what is thought. That is the key issue. And it all goes back to this idea, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, is where this idea comes that your children don't belong to you, that these minor children can make these decisions, and they we haven't ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child in the United States. We're not bound by it legally. But as I pointed out in 2009, you've got judges and you've got schools and all these government institutions that act as if that is what the law is. And so they're constantly saying that's the whole basis of them pushing this gender gaslighting on very young children. And to say that the parents, and we've seen this over and over again in places like California, the parents must not be told what we were telling the kids in terms of trying to change them from a boy to a girl or vice versa. You can't tell the parents. And so we've had a lot of Christian teachers who push back against that, who have sued them over that. But that is really where the fight is in so many different ways. And so, again, they will use all the terms about socialization, quality education, all the rest of the stuff being violated. Talk about socialization. That discussion should be over after 2020, after they locked down the country, after they put masks on the kids, after they told them to be 6 feet apart. Don't talk to me about socialization. That's insane.
There's also the fact that it's the worst kind of socialization.
Yeah.
It's uncontrolled, unmonitored, Lord of the Flies style. And, you cannot expect a well-balanced person to come out of that sort of scenario. They're going to have issues of some kind.
That's right.
Children need to be watched, guarded, and corrected.
It's a very artificial environment that children are raised in when you put, 30 kids in a classroom with one adult.
An adult they don't like and don't respect.
And an adult who can't punish them. This guy is all against corporal punishment. Don't tell me they don't have corporal punishment in the North Korea, right? So,
I wouldn't be surprised if they had capital punishment in North Korean schools.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so, they're talking about how they have to respect diversity and all the LGBT stuff. Do you really think they allow LGBT in North Korea? I don't think so. So they said they promote mandatory training from government for parents who wish to homeschool. Well, Karen and I already had that mandatory training. They didn't have an option to opt out of school when we were in school, and so we both went through the mandatory training when we were children, so we don't need to do that again. As a matter of fact, that was the motivating factor for us to do homeschooling. But the reality is that it is really about character. And you've got somebody else saying this now, which is kind of interesting, I think, that, and this is actually coming from FTC Northern, and to say, the hidden crisis in our classrooms, why education without character is failing America. And this is actually on Zero Hedge. This is not on some Christian site. And I got to say, and as I've said for the longest time, and as others have said, character is education. The rest of the stuff is just, it's vocational training. But character is the basis and should be the basis of education. That's what R.L. Dabney said right after the Civil War. He said, this whole idea of government-run schools, he goes, that's fine if you're going to do vocational training or something like that. But character is really, education should be first and foremost about character, which means that it's going to be about somebody's worldview and their religion. And we know that government should have no involvement in that because government should not be picking a religion to promote. Now we have seen which religion they want to promote is the anti-God LGBT religion that they have chosen to promote. So again, this article from Zero Hedge goes through all of this and the failing, even by their own metrics, that they want to train people in terms of reading, writing, and arithmetic, for example. They said even in that area they're failing. But the biggest failure that we have is in character. John Dewey shifted education from a focus on character formation toward utilitarian aims. While some aspects of his approach, like critical thinking, retain value, his broader impact contributed to treating values as socially constructed and relative. The moral relativism and the postmodernism, rather than objectively discernible truths that were worth pursuing. The ancients understood something that we've forgotten. In traditional times, academia was designed to help human beings comprehend what is true good, and beautiful. Makes me think of Roger Scruton. And we've got an interview coming up, and our guest is on the line right now, and we're going to talk about this very thing. And I'm really looking forward to talking to Anthony Freda, who is an artist that I've admired his work for a very long time. He's done covers for Gerald Celente, and he has done artwork for InfoWars as well. And he has changed his focus. And he is still involved with politics, I think, but he is moving his focus to some projects to support Christianity. And he's had a change in his life, and we're going to talk to him about his new book that is coming out, The Thought Crimes of Anthony Freda, which he has. They're going to come for the memes and all the rest of the stuff. We know that. We know that they set up the Coalition for Content Provenance and Authentication for that very reason. Memes and artwork are very profoundly powerful. And so we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be joined with Anthony Freda. I'm looking very forward to talking to him and finding out what he's up to and find out about his new book. We'll be right back.
Listening to The David Knight Show.
All right, welcome back. And joining us now is Anthony Freda. He's got a new book that's coming out. We're going to talk to him about that, The Thought Crimes of Anthony Freda. And he's been very successful as an artist, and his art is full of very important critiques of what we see politically. He's actually had his art put on display at the 9/11 Museum and Memorial in New York City. And he's on the same page as we are, I think, about 9/11. His tenure with InfoWars as an illustrator and writer fully cemented his place in the world of controversial alternative news. And he's been very vocal about his role in that space. And so that's where I got to know Anthony, as well as his work with Gerald Celente and Trends Journal. So thank you for joining us, Anthony. Good to see you again.
Great to see you, David, and thanks for having me. Beautiful set, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I always wanted to talk to you about your background here, and there's a whole other aspect of your background that I wasn't aware of now that you're getting into Christian art, and you've got a project with that as well, and a GoFundMe to help realize that project. But let's talk about your personal journey here. You began doing copy stuff for the advertising industry, and you began helping them to sell Joe Camel. Talk a little bit about that and how you got from there to where you are now.
Yeah, so it's quite a journey. I've been doing it for 40 years, so wow. I'll give you the condensed version. But yeah, I got out of art school. I had this dream of becoming this, famous, prosperous, thriving artist. And I just wasn't prepared. I mean, I went to Pratt, I had 4 years of training in art and painting and drawing, and I was pretty proficient, and I was, pretty confident. But they really didn't train you how to make a living as an artist. So I sort of figured it out on my own. Like, now I have to make a living doing this. So crossing that threshold from academia into the professional world for any artist is a scary time. I mean, I teach seniors now at FIT, and it's my way of giving back because I know how scared they are. And so I try to sort of pivot that.
And I think
anxiety.
It's a scarier time right now than ever has been. I mean, we look at AI, and a lot of people are just content to throw a prompt at AI and take whatever it gives them. What do you think about that? How is that going to affect art?
Well, I think it's going to be not just art. I think it's designed to create a post-human future where the robots do all the work and they work 24 hours a day. And I mean, the transhumanist, elevator to hell pitch is that the robots do everything for us and we have the freedom to do whatever we want and they'll give us a basic unit of income. I don't think it's going to work out that way, but that's their utopian, post-human, transhumanist future. I had my class yesterday. The kids were crying. They were literally crying because they just went to school for 4 years to learn how to be an artist, and now anyone who has an AI program can do what they do.
Yeah.
So it's very demoralizing to the creatives, but the same thing goes for the guys remember they said learn to code? Not anymore.
Right. Yeah, they're putting themselves out of a job. That's right. Well, the other part of it is, though, and I think we'll get to this when we get to where you are right now, the machine has no soul. It's going to put things together statistically. And it can copy and paste and throw things against the wall. And in a sense, it's a sophisticated version of a chimpanzee doing painting, right? And so there is still going to be a niche there, I think, for the human soul, communicating truth and beauty. I think that's really the issue there, and that's what we have to focus on. And I think that that's going to be pretty obvious to people. There's a lot of things that AI can do, especially, I think, in the art aspect, because it can hallucinate. And it looks like it's, having a drug trip or whatever, and that can be useful in art or even in music to some degree. But when you look at when I look at it for music, for example, the thing about AI is that you can't precisely get it to do what you want. It can get like 80% there or 85% there, which is not good enough for art. As many people have said, art is never finished. It's simply abandoned. At some point, you got to stop tweaking it and just go do something different, the next project or whatever. And I think that's the problem with AI. It just throws this stuff out there and people say, that's good enough. I think there's going to be a qualitative difference that people will be able to tell that last 15 or 20% that is there. That's my hope. I agree with you. Yeah, that's my hope.
Well, me too. But I think you're right. Listen, our advantage moving forward is the robots don't laugh, they don't cry, they don't love.
That's right.
They're not connected to God. In fact, I think it's the opposite.
That's right.
I have this idea that just as the Holy Spirit is this unifying force and universal force of good and God, the obverse, the yin to that yang, is this unifying force of darkness, which informs and which has basically a cauldron for this AI to be created. And we're incarnating it by giving it prompts and giving it life. But that spirit is a dark spirit, and I sense that and I feel that it's an anti-human spirit.
I agree.
But
so does Elon. Elon Musk agrees with you as well. He said we're summoning the demon. It's like, yeah, maybe we should pay attention to what he's saying about that. He knows that.
Yeah, no, some of these guys who are atheists say there's something here that mathematics doesn't, describe or define. So it's something beyond mathematics. So what's going on? They don't even know. The guys who created it don't even know how, these systems arrive at the decisions that they make.
That's right.
To a certain point, it's called black box technology, right? It's opaque, but robots understand it. But they might not. But they understand us, though. That's the problem. Like, we don't understand how they do what they do, but they understand us. I mean, they have so much big data about humanity and what moves us and how to influence us that it's a lopsided relationship.
That's why it's such a good fit for the government, because the government knows everything about us, but the government itself is, by design, a black box. That black box is labeled national security. We can't tell you, or we'd have to kill you, right? So,
exactly. Yeah. And, so, I mean, I could talk about AI for hours, but...
but let's go back to your story. You were doing, started working at an ad agency as you got out, trying to make a living.
I was a young man, I lusted after money and women, and I was in my 20s, and I became very successful working for Fortune 500 companies, and I I was in advertising about 10 years, and I started to learn and see all the psychological tricks and manipulations, informed by the ideas of Edward Bernays and his book Propaganda. He was the master of mass psychological manipulation, right? And that was employed. He was contracted by the government and by aid agencies. It's a long story, but those ideas work because people respond positively to certain stimuli, negatively to other stimuli. Like, we're pretty predictable animals. And once you break that code, you're trying to sell something, and you're smart and clever, you can figure out a way to do it. But I got really turned off. I was working on the Joel Campbell ad campaign, and in those days they were, paying us a lot of money to do this stuff, and I was just enamored with the money, and I bought a condo in Manhattan, and I thought I was like living on top of the world. And then, so I kind of got lost in that world of money and success. And then the FTC determined that our campaign was illegal because we were using cartoon camels. They said we were marketing cigarettes to children. So I sort of had a moral crisis, and I didn't become an artist to sell cigarettes to kids, right? And I said,
maybe you could get a job for Pfizer because they sell poison to kids all the time.
Well, that's later on in the story.
Yeah.
So I had this moral crisis, this come to Jesus moment. I said, that's it. I'm done with advertising. Yeah. I'm not going to sell my soul to the devil.
Good.
So I was still, now I'm a young man in my 30s. I was pretty naive politically at that time. And I said, I'm going to work for the good guys, right? I'm going to work for New York Times and the New Yorker. And I started working for, all these mainstream publications as an editorial illustrator. And I worked for the op-ed page of the New York Times, which is like a premier showcase for thinkers and for, it's kind of like where the elite speak to each other.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was, again, I was on top of the world. I'm working like, the best place for an illustrator to be. And I was doing articles for them on a regular basis. And then I got to see how the sausage is made there. And the art director and the editor told me that every single word that goes through here has to be vetted by the State Department. And I said, I thought, you're the fourth ward. I said, that's like Pravda. What do you mean every word has to be by the State Department? And they said, that's how it is. So my naivete started to, unravel at that point. I started to become a little more educated about how the world really works. And I feel silly now saying that, but I thought the New York Times was this like beacon of truth and objectivity. I mean, I couldn't be more wrong. But so I got an assignment to do, it was an op-ed piece right before the Iraq War, penned by then Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice. And it was outlining all the lies that we know now that took us to that war. And I illustrated the piece. And then I had another moral crisis because I said to myself, my God, I went from selling cigarettes to kids to selling war. Like, this is even worse. I didn't think I could do worse than that, but I did. So I had another, time to question, what am I doing with my life? What are my life choices? What do I really want to do with my skills and my whatever gift God's given me and my passions? And I mean, I love to create imagery. It's just like the only thing I'm good at. So I wanted to stay in that lane. So right then was about the time that these seminal alternative news sites started coming out, like InfoWars, and there was a few others, and Trends Journal, and I reached out to them, and because I figured these guys are exposing the lies of the mainstream media that I used to work for, and of the advertising agencies I used to work for. So I wanted to bite the hand that fed me. So I started working for people in the health freedom movement, people in the liberty movement, people in all these different movements, people like you included. And I've been there ever since because I do think there are good people out there who are trying to get to the truth of the matter about all these issues, and journalists and activists and filmmakers, and writers, and I've worked for a lot of them, and they're my heroes. So, and then politically, I was under contract for the RFK campaign when he was running for president, because I believed in what he was doing and his work to expose the vaccines and the dangers of pharmaceuticals.
Right. So
I still have a hand in the political realm, but I'm basically working for people who I think are the good guys. You know, that I can sleep well at night now, David, because I think I'm working for people who are at least trying to tell the truth. You know, it's like it's not equivalent like when people get fined for like the way they went after Alex for what he said. Like the New York Times and CNN tell lies of much greater magnitude every day, and nobody gets sued. And by the way, their lies lead to wars that kill millions of people. Their lies sell products that kill millions of people, and they're never held accountable. And then, and they're not. The difference between them and say what independent journalists do is that they're purposely trying to lie to you. They know they're lying to you.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing to make a mistake in the the search for the truth. We're not always going to be perfect, but there's a big difference to somebody who's purposely knowing to lie to you, to hurt you and your children, than somebody who's just trying to figure out in real time what the hell's going on, because it's very confusing.
I agree. Yeah.
We've been lied to so much about everything that people become so skeptical that, you know, I think unfortunately it fosters this environment where nobody believes anything. And that's where we're at now. Nobody believes anything. So they come up with 100 different theories of how Charlie Kirk was killed, right? No, because nobody believes the official story.
That's right.
And we can never get to the bottom of anything because everybody has their own theory about what happened. And there's no universal truth anymore. We're in the post-truth age. And I think so truth is going to be the greatest, most valuable commodity.
I agree.
In the future. It's
here's what you need. Here's the fundamental truth. Government lies. It always has, always will, for its own interest. So if you understand that and come to whatever the government says or the official press says with a healthy dose of skepticism, I think that's the most important thing. You know, you mentioned the fact that you realize that they had to get the approval of the State Department for what they were saying at the New York Times. And, of course, we know about Operation Mockingbird and the rest of this stuff. I thought it was really amazing, the disingenuous astonishment at the fact that Hegseth openly said, well, you're going to have to get approval for anything that you release. I don't like that, but that's not anything that's really different. The only thing that's different about that is that they're going to own it and say it out loud rather than doing it behind closed doors. I had a friend who worked at the Pentagon, and he worked for the side that was vetting movie scripts. If they liked your movie script, if it was complimentary of them and their agenda, they would give you access to military equipment that you could use to film your movie. If they didn't like it, you didn't get that equipment, and that might sink your movie because of the expense of trying to get that equipment. Otherwise, they'd provide it at a reduced cost or for free. So that kind of thing has been going along for a very long time. Yeah. And
Frank, I mean, I'm still surprised. I'm old enough to remember Frank Church, the church committee hearings. Like, he had the receipts. He proved it back in the 70s, and nobody cared. It's like it did nothing. Like, they just went back to business as usual.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you know, thank God for him and his work, but I mean, it really didn't do anything in the big picture.
Yeah. And all the stuff about the heart attack gun, as I've said before, that was really a distraction, because the whole thing began because from their inception, the CIA and the NSA were spying on Americans without a search warrant, which, you know, takes us, we've been fighting that thing going up to, 2012, 2013, Ed Snowden and all the rest of the stuff. So the result of that was still, the result of the church committee hearings was the FISA Act, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which they then used to give themselves legal cover to do what they'd been doing from their inception, which was to spy on Americans without a search warrant, as Rand Paul says, spying on Mr. and Mrs. Verizon. You know, you go to one judge in a secret court that nobody knows about, and you get legal cover to violate the Constitution. So they always turn this stuff to their own advantage.
Well, yeah, and speaking of that subject, I worked, one of my heroes is William Binney, and I had the pleasure of working on a documentary about William. I met him just a great guy. And
yes,
I mean, he quit because he said the systems he designed to spy on potential terrorists would be being used to spy on everybody.
Yeah.
And that's against the oath he took, and that's illegal. And he said he's not going to do it. So what did? The FBI raided his house and arrested him under false pretenses and false charges.
Yeah.
But yeah, so just get back to my journey.
Yeah.
So I don't lose track. After the RFK thing, I worked for him for a year, and it was a great experience. And I got to see just how dirty the Democrats are. I mean, Republicans basically left him alone. You know, Trump would make some, nasty comments now and then, but the Democrats actively tried to destroy him with lawsuits and moles and people doing dirty tricks. And it was a constant, relentless assault on him that it really opened my eyes again. I mean, I was naive again. Like whenever I underestimate how evil these people are and how willing they are to be corrupt and to use the power they have or abuse any power they have in the courts, in the media, in academia, in tech. I mean, which they control those institutions, unfortunately. And it sickened me. It sickened me the way they smeared him and lied about him and sued him and tried to play dirty tricks with ballots and just on and on and on.
Oh, yeah.
So then that made me realize that the battle isn't political. This battle is spiritual. So I wanted to move from the temporal plane into the spiritual plane of my work and get back to my Christian roots. I was raised a Catholic. And I had a personal experience where my fiance started having seizures one night. We were watching, actually, there was the Obama movie. It was like an apocalyptic Obama movie, Leave the World Behind, which turned out to be a foreboding title because my girlfriends were watching this. She says, my heart hurts and I don't feel right. And I said, maybe it's anxiety from this Obama show. Screw Obama. Let's not watch this. It's upsetting you. And then she just went into seizures. And she was extremely healthy. She was extremely, there was no pre-existing condition. She just started convulsing and seizing and just went 1,000-yard stare and stopped breathing. And I'm not a doctor, but I think breathing is pretty important. And I didn't know what to do, David. I felt so inadequate and helpless. I had no idea what to do. Like, should I do chest compression or Heimlich maneuver? I didn't know.
Yeah. I
didn't know what to do except to call 911. And I just held her, and she was in this state of like a comatose state. I didn't know if she was dying. I thought she was dying. And then she came out of it for a brief moment with this look of just terror and fear to this calm, and this peace came over her, and she started laughing. And I thought, like, was this all a joke? But she's not that. She's not that kind of person. And she was laughing, and her whole face, and her whole body was just relaxed, and she was at a place of peace. And then she clenched back and went back into this convulsive state.
Wow.
And I believe, like, she went to the other side. I believe she was at peace with God for a brief period, and that it just wasn't her time, or she just got sent back, or I don't know obviously what happened, but it was extraordinary.
Does she have any recollection of that?
None of any of it. Your brain doesn't remember that stuff, and probably to protect you. But it was extraordinary, and it reawakened my faith, and that was a year and a half ago, and thank God she's healthy now. 75% of the people who go through, when she went through, it was a brain bleed. 75% of the people die that it happens to.
Wow.
So she was in coma. She had a long convalescence, but thank God she's healthy now.
Yes.
And it brought both of us closer to God, and it made me want to dedicate my work to the Lord. And every piece I do now is a devotion to God. Every stroke of my pen is a meditation, a prayer. And I want to lean into that as much as I possibly can.
That's great. You know, before you came on, we were talking about what's going on in Canterbury Cathedral. And that used to be the basis for why people would make these elaborate cathedrals, was out of a devotion to God and wanting to honor him. And of course, depending on what gifts he has given us, we can all have different ways that we can do that. And, you know, whatever your job is, you can always do it in a way that you try to honor God. And yet, what do you think about, did you see that story where they paid somebody to do graffiti on the interior walls of Canterbury Cathedral? Did you see that?
Yeah, to me, it's worse than graffiti. It's like, it's vandalism. But, you know, it's like, it's so funny because these things that were created in the so-called Dark Ages, they couldn't make those today.
That's right.
And it's because of what you said. It's because they weren't doing it for the profit motive, right? Mm-hmm. They were doing it for the profit motive, you know, spelled differently. And that's the only way humans can create something like that. Your heart and soul has to be in it. I mean, you go into those cathedrals and you feel the presence of God. You feel the presence of the highest achievement humanity is capable of. And they did it in the so-called Dark Ages, like with none of the tools, none of the technology we have. Like,
that's right.
It's astonishing, and it's just the amount of time and human labor and life force and sacrifice and artistry and craftsmanship and skill that went into those things. Just that alone is enough to uplift your spirit. They're uplifting edifices and monuments, and today we have monuments like the 9/11 monument, which is it's a black box. It's a hole. It's like a giant urinal. And you go to you know, that black box memorial, and it's just like a spinning, sucking hole to hell where no light escapes. And it's just, there's nothing uplifting about it.
That's right.
I've had to say, you want to jump in and kill yourself and be sucked into hell. Wow. So that's the feeling I get when I go there. And I think in some ways it's appropriate considering that we know what happened there.
Yeah.
But it's just, the answer to everything, I think, is just, we got to try to live like saints. I mean, if everybody lived to the better angels, the whole world would overnight become a better place. Yes. Everybody's trying to go into all these marches and protests and all this nonsense, and it's like, fix yourself first.
That's right.
If you fix yourself and you just be a good person, that's it. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't hurt your neighbor. That alone, there'll be no more crime, right? Why would there be crime? Crime is based on a human doing something that he knows is sinful and knows is illegal and knows is wrong. So instead of trying to fix the world from the outside, you gotta fix it inwardly. You know, get closer to God and understand that the infinite power and glory of God is not a separate thing from you. It's within you. That light is within you. And you just need to accept it and let that connection grow and become stronger with everything you do. And every good thing you do makes it stronger. You feel closer to God from every good thing you do, every good work you make. And
I agree, yeah. Yeah, it was a very powerful sermon that they actually wound up doing as a lecture as to what is wrong with our society, I think. Because when you look at the graffiti, not only did they go into a place that was beautiful and uplifting, and they essentially tear it down with their ugly stuff that they put on it. And the ugliest thing about what they were putting on there with their graffiti was what it actually said. It was a rage against God and his creation, every bit of it. And that's really kind of shows us where our society is. So the Church of England is still setting the foundation for England. It's just setting a satanic foundation that is there. And
absolutely. That's satanic. I mean, that's a purposeful defilement. It's like putting the cross upside down. Like everything they do is an inversion. Like the pentagram, the original 5-pointed star was supposed to represent the 5 wounds of Christ. And so the Satanists inverted it and turned it into the pentagram. So those symbols are very important. And imagery is important, and they know that, and they use it to their satanic purposes.
Yes.
And the defilement of God and the dishonoring of God, and we see the the result. Just look around you. I mean, it's like there's demons everywhere, and there's demons in high places and low places, and a society rots from the top down. I think it starts with these people who design these so-called utopias for us, like the AI post-human utopia. I think they hate themselves, the misanthropes, and they project their hatred, self-hatred onto humanity. And then if they can destroy humanity, they can somehow destroy the parts of themselves that they hate, like in a Jungian shadow, sort of.
I agree, yeah, especially when you look at the transgender stuff. The purpose of that is to take very young, impressionable people, or maybe even somebody who's an adult and that's very impressionable, like Christopher Beck, who was a Navy SEAL that they pushed into becoming a training. But it's to train them to hate their body, to hate themselves, and then to engage in self-mutilation. And so I think that is truly the satanic aspect of it. Tell us a little bit about your project, Jesus Park, that you're working on. You got a GoFundMe attached to that as well. But tell us about that. I think we got a picture, Lance, of that you can show the audience of that.
So Free Flicker is I just started. I had this. Dream, this vision, David, of this park in this beautiful sort of pastoral, natural setting with trees and rocks and I've done a lot of imagery of Christ, and I wanted to create the face of Christ out of all natural materials, like his crown of thorns would be actual trees, like, so the scale would be enormous, like his face might take up a half acre or more. But it'll be a place of contemplation, a place of prayer, a place of peace. And for me, it'll be a labor of love and a devotion to God. And I say it came to me in a dream, a download, and I just feel like I have to make this thing. And well, I'm still young enough, yeah, which might not be much. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I do need some funds to realize it. Talking to some churches and to have land and trying to find the right spot for it. But I think it would be an incredible, lasting monument and shrine, really, that I hope that people can enjoy.
And so you'd be able to see the picture that we got. That'd be like an aerial view that people would be able to see.
Yeah, so you can
large scale.
In my vision, I've done models of it, and if it's on a slight slope, you should be able to make out his face from the ground, but you won't be able to get the full picture. So maybe from a drone shot or something like that, but you'll be able to see what it is, and it looks great in my dream. Now I just have to make it real.
Have you got any? You haven't got a site for it yet, but are you angling for any particular geographical area that would have large population?
I live on Long Island, and there's this beautiful shrine out on the east end of Long Island called Our Lady of the Island, and they have, I think, about 100 acres of land, and there's a beautiful 20-foot marble sculpture of Mary. There's an outdoor church that I go to there, and it overlooks the Great South Bay. It's just an incredible spot, and they have a lot of land there. So I reached out to them. I don't know if it's going to work out, but there's a lot of logistics involved. So it's going to take some planning and a little time, but I'm determined. So if I have to at some point just buy a small piece of land, maybe upstate New York, you can get inexpensive land. Whatever I have to do, I'm going to make this happen.
Yeah, that's great. Well, in Tennessee, land is fairly cheap, and they have a lot of unusual sites for people to come see. So you might get a lot of traffic there if you put it further south. But Yeah.
That's a good idea. I don't know much about it, but I'll take a ride down to Tennessee. Why not?
Yeah. Instead of people going to see Rock City, they can see the Jesus Park that's there. Where can people find the GoFundMe? How do they find that?
Well, you can find all of my thought crimes on, if you go just anthonyfrida.com, anthonyfrida.com. Like, there's links to all my projects there.
Okay, good. And your book is not out yet, is it? Thought Crimes of Anthony Frida? Is that out yet?
No, that's not. But that was the title was inspired by an actual crime that was happened because of my artwork. I did a book cover for C.J. Hopkins, who wrote this book, The Rise and Fall of the New Normal, and I did a takeoff of Rise and Fall of the Third Reich, that cover, and I put the COVID mask with a swastika barely visible behind the mask, the COVID mask. And they decided to charge him for disseminating Nazi propaganda in Germany, and he had to go. He was facing like years in prison.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my book cover, and all he did was tweet that cover to get indicted. So that's a literal crime that I've been involved with as an accessory.
So you can't use the symbols of the Nazi regime, but you can act like Nazis, and that's okay, right?
No, yeah, right. No, but it's selectively enforced because, there's Stern and magazines in Germany, they'll show Trump in full Hitler regalia all the time. That's just, that's fine.
Yeah.
And if it's used for the purposes of the left, they get a pass. And CJ is not even a right-wing guy. He's just one of these guys who is a skeptic. He questions everything.
Yeah.
So it's kind of ironic that they're using this illegal subversion of their own laws, which is something the Nazis would do, to prove that they're not Nazis. It's like there's a lot of ironies there. But anyway, he has this ongoing legal battle with them. And in Germany, they don't have double jeopardy like we do. So they charged him, and he went to trial, and he was acquitted. And now they're going to charge him again with the same crime.
Just keep
so they
coming.
can keep charging. They can keep coming until they get the verdict they want.
Wow. And it's not a new incident of anything. It's for the same exact thing, right? Well, we just had somebody that was arrested here in Tennessee for a meme that he put up, and they got him in, $2 million bond to get him out of jail. And again, it was because, and we see this kind of censorship is going on both the left and the right. This was about the fact that this guy didn't like Charlie Kirk or conservatives, and so there was a school that was going to have an event to honor Charlie Kirk. And he put up a meme that he didn't even create, that other people had created. It was a picture of Trump, and it was a quote about what Trump had said about a school shooting. And it said, we got to get over this and move on. And so he put that up as his comment about the Charlie Kirk shooting. And because the place that he did it was something like Perry, Idaho or something, was where the high school was, where the shooting had been. And this was in Perry County. And they said, well, you were trying to intimidate people here in Perry County by using this meme that you didn't even create. And so the sheriff arrested him for that. $2 million bail. We're seeing free speech attacked everywhere. Every country, every political philosophy is coming for speech, because especially when we're looking at memes or political commentary like you do, it's very, very powerful. They wouldn't be coming after it otherwise.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm pretty certain he's going to win that lawsuit because that's outrageous. But yeah, I'm used to censorship, and I know you've been through it too, just constantly deplatformed and demonetized and this and that, and it's just and by the way, everything that I was censored for, turns out I was right about.
That's right.
I was right about all of it. Every single thing I said, it was mostly about COVID. And then I'm also fairly certain I was put on a domestic terror list because Biden had a list of anyone who questioned the COVID narrative was put on a list.
Yeah.
And I was high profile about that. So, I'm considered a potential violent, they used the word violent, potential violent domestic extremist terrorist if you were questioning COVID.
That's right.
narrative.
Yeah, because they say that, speech is violence. And I say, no, censorship is violence. And the people who use and enforce censorship are the ones who usually do resort to violence in one shape or the other, like arresting this guy. The sad thing is that you see that both sides of the political spectrum, and I'm talking about not just the politicians, but I'm talking about the grassroots people, are cheering this kind of censorship if they don't like what you have to say. We have lost the understanding of the importance of free speech in our society, and that includes America. It's not just in Europe, but it's in America as well. People don't realize that these tools of tyranny will be used against them eventually, and have already been used against them in many cases, and they still are cheering this on. It's truly amazing. I don't know how to get around it. Yeah.
I don't know. I've never seen the country so divided. There's no room. That's why, the Charlie Kirk thing was so symbolic, because if you're not going to talk, you're going to kill each other. And
That's right.
people were that. It's like, because they don't want to talk. They want to kill. And what is that? I mean, I know you're a great student of history. Like, where does this go? It goes one place. It's called Civil War. That's where it goes. It's just like, this is nothing new. We've seen it thousands of times before, all throughout history. When there's a divide of this extreme nature, where there's no communication, you're either good or evil, you're either with me or against me, it leads to civil war. I mean, I don't know how close we are to it, but unless something radically changes, which I don't see any evidence of, we're in some perilous times here.
I agree. Yeah, we've lost our foundation. We've lost our foundation in terms of principles that made the West great. And we've lost our foundation because we've turned our back on God. That's what we were talking about earlier. And that truly is the foundation, is the Lord
Amen.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. And once we turn away from that, we are adrift as a society. And so even though we used to have guns everywhere, now the guns are being turned on each other and being used on us. And there's a lot of different aspects to it. I think the heavy use of drugs is a part of that. I think that even plays a role, actually, in the technocrats. I had been told years ago that when these guys would go hang out at the Burning Man thing, that they were dropping, LSD, and they were also taking, what was that, DMT or something, where they come in contact with machine elves. And the interesting thing about this is that you hear from the same people who are in different geographical areas. They start talking about how they had the same types of encounters. And they're channeling technology from these entities that they're coming in contact with. And you can have people in radically different places that have the same experiences that are there. They even call them psychonauts, not nuts, but knots, like an astronaut or something. And so
that's
yeah,
it's interdimensional travel, I think. I mean, they're opening a portal to hell, for lack of a better word. I mean, this hell's another dimension, heaven's a dimension, our plane is a dimension. And those drugs somehow, I don't know how it works, I can't even come close to explain it, but it makes the veil between the dimensions permeable.
Yeah.
And they're able to permeate it with these substances, and it's a dark energy, and we're seeing it. And that's connected to the whole AI thing we were talking about before.
Yes.
And these drugs are facilitating it, and you're totally right. But the other thing is, when you turn away from God, I mean, Deepak Chopra said you leave a God-shaped hole. So what do you fill that hole with? You're going to fill it with drugs or porn or wokeism or something, or Satan. It's like, it has to be filled, because that's part of our human makeup, that we have to have something to believe in. So if you don't fill it with God, the alternatives are anti-human, and they're satanic, and they're dark. You're taking something that should be filled with light, and you're filling it with darkness.
That's right. Absolutely. Well, it is kind of interesting. I use this quite a bit to attack the pharmaceutical companies. I'd call them pharmakia, because that's the Greek term that's used in the New Testament. Frequently was translated as sorcery, because people would include these hallucinogenic drugs as part of their spiritual experience and that type of thing. That's a very old thing. But also it talks about how the pharmakia and the great men of the world would not repent of their murders. That's how I was using it for the pharmaceutical companies. and I thought it really fit. But that really is what we're seeing. And with all the technology that we've got and all of this idea about how we are so scientific and materialistic, and we don't believe anything unless we can measure it, well, that we have seen over and over again is simply not true. The people that we disagree with are more than willing to pursue by faith a lot of different things, whether you're talking about the climate change agenda or the pandemic. They accept a lot of stuff on the basis of faith. It's just what they have faith in. They have faith in these institutions. They have faith in people who have credentials that say that they're a scientist or an authority in something. So it's just a difference in what they have faith in. But I think it's very important what you're doing in terms of artwork. That gets to people on a different level than just talking to them straight about the facts. You know, whenever we can engage the emotions, and art does that, and movies do that, and Christians are starting to learn to use the tools of movie making. And so I think there's going to be some very important work that is done there. But gradually the Christian movie industry is picking up. But I think there's so much that's been lost in terms of artwork that would move people. I think that what you're doing is very important.
Well, thank you, David. Yeah, and speaking of film, I started working with a film production company. I think you're right. The answer is to create a parallel M&E economy that is in accordance with our values, and the values of Western civilization and Christendom, the things that we have faith in, things that we believe in. And a lot of it's been sort of kind of hokey, kitschy stuff up to this point, but we're trying to create, with Man Alive Media Group, this group I'm working with, right now we're working on a film about World War I. We're going to do a film about Joan of Arc. And we're trying to make them very high-minded and to the best of our ability, great pieces of art. Because you're right, art speaks on a different level than just, it's a conversation, a different kind of conversation. It's like, poetry or prose. It's like, it's something that engages our mind in a different way and hopefully opens up our mind to this conversation. But we have to be able to talk, and censorship is the enemy of all of us, because then we're not talking. And if we're not talking, we're probably shooting each other.
That's
because
right.
So
we make peaceful change impossible. We make violent change inevitable, as Kennedy said. That's right. And I think it's very important, for the longest time, Christians have retreated from the arts, and they feel like the best way to engage people is with a didactic aspect. And of course, there's value in that, but there's another way to reach people, and that is by showing them, and portraying as a narrative. I just talked to the author of Flags of Our Fathers, who's just done a book on Vietnam. He spent 10 years in Vietnam talking to people there. And his name is James, was it James Bradley? I think it was, Bradley or Radley. I'm sorry, I can't remember his last name, but very interesting guy. And when he did this book, his previous books were nonfiction, but he wanted to do a fictional book because he said there were so many facets and so many different things that he had to use fictional characters to bring them together. And so not only does it engage our emotions more so if we have a narrative story, but it also allows us to pull together the relevant things in a way that we couldn't if we had to stick to exactly what the true story was. And Hollywood knows that for the longest time. You go see something that's based on a true event, they always change it, always begin, this is based on a true story, but the actual characters are fictionalized and so forth. They always do that. And so I think it's good, the kind of projects that you mentioned there when we're talking about people living their life according to Christian principles. I think that's probably the best way that that can be done, rather than going into the Bible and then fictionalizing that. That always kind of rubs me the wrong way. Trying to rewrite it. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be didactic or so blatant. There was great Christian authors, Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, and they were coming up with their own mythology to sort of mirror Christian themes without, saying literally this is Jesus and this is what happened.
That's right.
So, Christianity to me is a myth that's true.
Yes.
But we need to create alternative myths to reinforce that myth, to bring people to us, because it's just so boring to just, tell the same story. Even in brilliant filmmakers' hands, it's been done, and it's just going to turn a lot of people off. But if you do it in a way that's creative and original and interesting and unexpected and entertaining and edifying, now it's something different. Now it's a work of art on its own, not just pastiche and not just biblical scripture translated into film.
That's right. I remember the film critic Brian Godawa, and he actually was able to do a film. I think it was called To End All Wars. I'm not sure about that, but it took place American soldiers in a Japanese prison camp during World War II. But his whole idea is that very much like, I think it was C.S. Lewis who said that the Christian myth is the greatest myth, and it's real. He doesn't mean that it's fictional. He just means by myth, he means an epic story. And so that was kind of Brian Godawa's take on it. He said, every one of the stories that really resonate with people always have a redemptive arc in the story. And he did a really good job with that. And he also would kind of draw that out in his film reviews that he did. But that I think is something that, if we're not going to be able to fight a culture war if we don't have culture, someone said. I think that's exactly true, right?
I gotta steal that line, David.
We're going in unarmed, right?
I mean, it's stating the obvious, but we got to listen. It's on us.
Yeah.
I think it's incumbent upon Christians, of people who are means, people who are creative, people who have talent or something to give, put it towards the cause, because the other side certainly is, the Satanists and the demons and the lunatics and the Islamicists and the Marxists, they're all on board. You just watch Netflix and there's messaging in every single thing they do.
Oh, yeah.
It's all anti-Christian, anti-male, anti-white, anti-American, and it's just, it's so ham-fisted, but they shoehorn it into everything. A story that has nothing to do with what they're talking about. They'll shoehorn, white people are bad. What does that have to do with the comedy I was watching? So
that's right.
We could do it more artfully. There's so many great artists and writers out there that are Christian, and we need to come together and build these teams, and that's what I'm trying to do in my own little way.
That's great. So best place for people to find out how they can get your book when it's available, and also to find out about the Jesus Park if they want to get involved in the GoFundMe, would be to go to your website, Anthony Freda, and that is FREDA.com, right? Is that the best way for them to find you?
Yes,
Anthony, it's always been great talking to you. I only had a chance to meet you once, and that was up at Gerald's event 4 years ago, and his Occupy Peace thing. And so when I saw that you had a book out there, I was like, oh, yeah, I'd definitely love to talk to Anthony about that. You got a great story to tell, and it's been a great journey that you've been on. I really want to thank you for the work that you have done. It's been very important, and look forward to a lot more to come from you in the future. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, David.
All right, thank you. Before we run out of time, let me get to some of the comments that are up here. And as Lance, my producer, said, Jesus used parables and analogies. That's right. So we're following in the right way when we use those type of things as well. So one of his favorite ways to get a point across was to use a parable, a story about something. And in most cases, I think there was at least one or two that were not fictional, but they were all giving a story there. And so Crash and Splash 75 says, average lifespan of lithium miner 30 years. So enjoy your battery. Yes, like a lot of these things. Cobalt as well. Cobalt is being dug out of the mines by young children operating at slave wages in a situation that kills them. So yeah, that is we have to understand that's behind a lot of this stuff. Car insurance is now higher to pay for than battery burns, says Jolson's. And Gard Goldsmith, good to see you, Gard. Liberty Conspiracy says, last year, the very U.S. government bureau tasked with promoting EV travel banned EV bikes and scooters from being brought into their Colorado building for fear of fire. That's right. Jason Barker, Knights of the Storm, good to see you. He says, AI is good for memes, but not for real art. meme images and music. And that's really, what it does. I mean, a meme just kind of picks up on a theme and imitates it. And that's precisely what AI is. But the real danger of AI is not that it's going to become some self-aware Skynet thing. I think the real danger is that it is a very effective tool for pulling together data and for doing searches and surveillance that can be used to control us. That's really where the devil is in that detail. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day. The common man. They created Common Core to dumb down our children. They created Common Pass to track and control us. Their Commons Project to make sure the commoners own nothing. And the communist future. They see the common man as simple, unsophisticated, ordinary. But each of us has worth and dignity, created in the image of God. That is what we have in common. That is what they want to take away. Their most powerful weapons are isolation, deception, intimidation. They desire to know everything about us while they hide everything from us. It's time to turn that around and expose what they want to hide. Please share the information and links you'll find at davidknightshow.com. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you can't support us financially, please keep us in your prayers. davidknightshow.com.